Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Geeky Gamer Podcast. We are probably getting inundated by some really loud music. I'm going to turn that down just a little bit so that you can actually hear my voice instead of just loud noise. We're here tonight with Lucas Duff of Ballad of the Seven Dice. Which is a podcast that is, and a YouTube and a link tree, and it's just like it seems like a whole entire community of really amazing content. We're going to talk to him in a second, but before that, I'd like to thank our Patreon members, Tim Roberts, Daniel Hulker, and Nostalgic for being a part of our Patreon, as well as Couchfire Media for art and media productions, and Trois Reblay Productions for the story, and all kinds of other fun, exciting, wonderful things. Hello. That's it. That's all I got. Good afternoon. I'm here with Bill and Lucas. Oh, that's good.
I'm checking the audio, baby. Checking the audio, you know what I'm saying?
You mean I'm just not on my own? It's really hot.
Yeah, is it hot? Because you got your heat on, dog. It's not hot in KY.
It is. It's 60 degrees plus.
It's because you have been in that room.
Winter. Look at this. Short sleeves in wintertime.
Sexy. Hey, Lucas. Would you mind telling us who in the hell you are?
Yeah, hi. I'm Lucas Duff. I am the producer, GM, content creator extraordinaire over at Ballad of the Seven Dice, and it is only -1, which I think is 30 Fahrenheit in the American lens. We have an assortment of different shows and campaigns that we've run. We focus a little bit more towards horror and some horror comedy and situations. And you can go on over to our YouTube where we have a ton of completed campaigns, D&D, Lancer, Mouse Ritter, Mothership, you name it. And also we have a lovely podcast where we have a completed D&D campaign, and we're working on a Pathfinder and Call of Cthulhu game that runs parallel. So I make many things. I've been making things for a good 5 years. I've been playing D&D since before everyone had cell phones. So a while.
Nice. Well, I think that wraps it up. And
all right, thanks for jumping on. And
thanks for jumping on. Real quick, before we get too in deep, what is everybody drinking?
Why you got to tell me that? Why do you got to ask these questions? You know,
we asked the question, like we pre-asked. I just wanted to see if there's anything. I am drinking bourbon from Kentucky, the state where I live. I'm not going to tell you which one.
I'm drinking water because I'm in California.
It's good for your pores.
We have a lovely Australian fortified wine with some Zevia to spice it up, as well as a spiced rum over here with the same Zevia treatment. And just to ensure we're healthy, we lie to ourselves and drink some vitamin water.
Oh, yeah, dude. Dude, you need those electrolytes, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Look, fortified wine. So we talking like... It's not vermouth, of course. Does it have any herbs and stuff in it?
It's like
or
port.
Is it just... Huh? It's like a port.
It's like a port.
So it is a port. Okay. So it's just a fortified wine. You know, ports are fine. I was digging on a Chianti because Hannibal Lecter. And also it's like $8 for a deal.
There you go. Yeah. See, the one I got is like $10-11, and it tastes really good, which is the prime goal. And then does the job.
It gets you there. Yeah, the Chianti, I don't know if it tastes really good. It's table wine. So, you know, it's more like you're drinking wine. Okay, thanks. That's about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, my special lady friend and I drank all the wine, and we drank all the bourbon. Actually, I drank all the bourbon. Anyway, so we got that and coffee kicking. It's awesome. Lucas, you and I don't know each other at all. How did Ken get a hold of you, and tell us your own story.
It was actually kind of an awesome story. I think Lucas broke, I think, normal protocol. And I reached out to him. I don't know normal protocol, but he said something, and it was like height of COVID on his podcast, and I was listening to it, and I was just blown away by like he had compassion and a real awareness of the world around him.
Sounds Canadian, huh?
Social awareness, what?
Yeah, no, and I was drawn to it. So I connected. I couldn't tell you what it was about because like at that time I was in politics, and I don't do politics anymore.
No,
I mean I do.
No, we never talk about politics ever.
Yeah, no, we do talk about politics, but I don't do it professionally weekly anymore. Because I prefer having a soul. But if I can work it subconsciously into this podcast, I will, but I won't. It's not the point. The point is that that as well as Lucas has this amazing ability. I really like his descriptions, the settings and the horror that he opens up his shows with. I caught him, and I don't think they do this show anymore, but it was one of the first podcasts I think that I connected with. It was like a horror podcast, and now I'm blanking on it because it's not in front of me.
Well, we have the dude who does it. Hey, Lucas.
What was you talking about the chosen few with like the shining god?
The shining god and all the that stuff was just brilliant. With Wingover, which might be my favorite character, is Wingover coming back?
So with everything, I remember seeing Ken's review on Podchaser, and it was a very lovely review as well as a comment on YouTube and stuff like that. And
what the hell are you talking about? What is this? I don't know anything. Tell me. Act like I'm like stupid.
Of course, yeah. So I was speaking out about Black Lives Matter and about having compassion for what people were going through.
Sure.
And of course, educating yourself, because there's a lot that we have to unlearn so that we can relearn to properly be compassionate. And naturally, you're going to have people who push back, and I did. I had somebody who left me a review going, 4 stars, could have been 5 though, but unfortunately, and then the classic rhetoric you see online. So like I tried to use it as more of a teachable moment to reach out.
Was it me?
And so yeah, and I think that was probably the episode where that Ken responded to, and. So, I was very happy to, of course, see that it has a positive impact. And with the character that you're talking about, Wingover, so I have this character, Wingover Gimbal, famous gnome bard, who essentially is this gnome bard is very into themselves. And they're telling the story. They're like the narrator, kind of like at the introduction and then at the outro for the episodes. Is kind of like speaking to the audience, breaking that fourth wall. And so that's how I framed the first campaign that we completed in our podcast form, The Ballad of the Chosen Few, which was a story about a number of people ripped from different multiverses to fight an eldritch war in the Forgotten Realms. And then I got to wreck the Forgotten Realms, because that's what I do. I ruin things.
Is this D&D you're playing?
Yes, it was a D&D 5th edition, and we had... I think 4 seasons, which was really good.
How long are your seasons?
A little bit everywhere, since I have no rules to abide by. Our first season was quite a bit of episodes because it was like, the first season was on the first podcast you ever make. So I think it was like 40 or 50 episodes. And then after that, they were progressively smaller, like 20 episodes, 15 episodes kind of thing. Right. So then we have our new show, which I actually do have Wingover in, which is Escaping Carcosa. In this story, it's kind of this combination. I've always wanted to run like 2 sister campaigns that run alongside each other. So I had a very lengthy interview process.
I get it.
Yeah. I got another GM to step in to do the Call of Cthulhu side while I ran Pathfinder 2E. And the premise is it's 2050 Seattle. this latest VR game has been put out called Carcosa Online, run by the Nostradamus Corporation. Everyone's stoked to be in it. They have a 12,000 player cap in like day one, so a bunch of people log on there, and then they can't log off. So then they have to fight in this death game where Haster basically appears in the sky, this eldritch god, saying, "You're in my domain now. If you want to get out, make it to floor 15 of this mega dungeon." So you have 12,000 people stuck there. And then on the outside, it's a Call of Cthulhu game in 2050 Seattle, trying to figure out what the hell's going on, how's this all connected, the corporations behind it, and then the eldritch horrors behind the corporations. And so we've been...
What is the difference between I just we kind of went a little too fast for me.
Okay, sorry, of course.
I want to go back just a little bit. Is there a difference between? I noticed that some of them are offline and some of them are online. What's the difference between escaping Carcosa offline and online?
So that was me being trying to be clever. The online are the people trapped inside the game, and then offline are the people outside of the game trying to break them out, the Call of Cthulhu group. So then that's essentially like the two campaigns that are running alongside of each other.
Okay, so I've got a slew of questions.
Yeah, by all means.
Continue.
And do they affect each other?
Yes.
The people online affect the people offline. What is that? There was a film.
Ready Player One.
Ready Player One. Okay, yeah, and you might have said that, but
I got a lot of inspiration from Dot Hack. Actually, there was so they had these PS2 Dot Hack games that also included a DVD with like each part of this 4 set. And then the DVD would show people who were like on the outside of in like the real world dealing with like your characters in this video game that you're playing. So it's almost like this story was running alongside it. So I really love that. So how we have it is I meet with the other GM Michaela every month, and we kind of like compare notes, talk about the story, make sure it's like constantly intertwined. And we have a cult that is effectively both inside the game and outside. They're communicating, and we have a mail system that we'll be introducing right away in the story where the characters are actually able to send mail back and forth, revealing things they're learning. And each thing that they're learning inside and outside of the game are intertwining into the story, showing them more and more and more of like, is this really just a video game? Are we really stuck just in this, or is there something more?
All right, I'm going to break this down.
Is the line?
No. We're way too deep.
Go ahead.
We got to pull back. Pull back. Okay. Because many people that are into tabletop role playing games will likely follow what you just said. And if they're not, they're gonna have no fucking clue what the fuck you're talking about at all. Because I'm a big geek, and I'm like, wait, the words we're using could be in game or out of game, and we're using them interchangeably. Sorry, I'm interrupting everyone today. Let's start at the beginning. Sure. When you say there's 2 different games, you said there's another GM, so it sounds like 2 different games that affect each other. Are they 2 different systems?
Yes.
Okay.
So one is the Call of Cthulhu 7E, and then one is Pathfinder 2E.
Okay. So you're doing it. It's D100, right? Call of Cthulhu. Hold on, Ken. Just a second, because we're gonna go into the deep again. All right.
I'm not.
So 2 campaigns, 2 different GMs. You guys work together. All right. When you say online, are you literally? Of course, in the fiction, it can be whatever. Are you literally saying there is an online remote game, and then there is like a pen and ink in-person game? Like, what is the distinction here?
The distinction is more for the inside of the game. You have the Call of Cthulhu people who aren't logged in to the video game.
Okay.
They're offline. And then the video game people who are trapped online.
Okay, but everyone is actually...
It's all
remotely online doing the thing. Okay.
Yeah, we have 2 different gaming groups, 4 players in each, and then 2 different GMs. That's how it went.
Ken, go.
I don't know the difference between Call of Cthulhu and You're playing Dungeons and Dragons and Call of Cthulhu? You said
Oh,
like going
let
way
me break
back.
it down a little more.
I don't know the
You said
difference between
Pathfinder.
like Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons. Are they the same thing?
They
Are they
somewhat
different
are.
things?
Yeah, Lucas,
So-
I'll let you explain all of it.
Call of Cthulhu is usually it's set into more of like a 1940s, 1930s kind of setting, but we made it more futuristic. But essentially, it is everyday people investigating the eldritch and cosmic horrors that are in this fictional world. So it's people are pretty vulnerable, very squishy, bad things happen, your brain breaks the more you learn. That's kind of the premise of Call of Cthulhu. You're everyday people, you're looking into things that you shouldn't know, and the more you know, the more it breaks you. Whereas the Pathfinder game, back in 3.5 of Dungeons and Dragons, well, history lesson, D&D diverged, and one group went to create Pathfinder. It was like Pathfinder First Edition, and the other group created Dungeons & Dragons Fourth Edition. Because there was a lot of creative differences. Fourth edition was not very well received. People viewed Pathfinder 1E as like a D&D 3.75.
Right.
So it's kind of like, the next sort of leap that they could make. The more and more they diverged, D&D went to 5th edition, which is the current game that most people are playing these days. Pathfinder went off to make 2E, which is now the 2nd edition that most people are playing in Pathfinder. Both very much fantasy, role-playing games, magic systems, clerics, all that kind of stuff. But the key distinction is like the rules themselves are shifting. They're shifting so much to the point where Pathfinder's working on another edition, I believe, so that they can completely diverge from.
Well, they better, especially since the OpenGL, I believe.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Was going to affect them.
Yeah, they want to be
Yeah.
completely gone from that.
Yeah, well, no doubt. I mean, yeah.
So we are using those two systems, a group of humans trying to figure out stuff, breaking their brains because cosmic outer beings are hard for humans to comprehend. And then people stuck in a video game where I traumatize them with all the horror stuff that I can think of.
It's interesting, this meta that you pulled in, which I think, well, we'll just talk about it. So one of our previous guests in episode 5 was Jeff McNeil, and he's created some games, some tabletop role-playing games and board games, and was a big influence on DreadLore, which is the game that I created, which is a TTRPG. And we really got into game system theory, or TTRPG theory, or whatever you want to call it, with the Forge and Ron Edwards and those fellows from back in the day. The idea being, one of the ideas, which is contentious, especially with people that really enjoy rules light systems, that the system really matters. So, for example, if you want to play a horror game, you and really have the atmosphere of horror and be doing what horror is supposed to do,
right.
At the table, if you have people that are playing the sort of anime version, where nothing is serious, everything is a quip, that kind of thing, it destroys the feeling of horror. You could arguably have a horror game, but you're not going to be doing a proper horror. Like if in Alien, the movie, if Ripley was like doing one-liners, it would kind of ruin the mood. It wouldn't make sense, right?
Right.
So the idea being, if you want to do that game, you need the system that's going to have rules that support the play style. Which this is a contentious statement. People argue it all the time, but that's what I believe, or what I'm convinced of at this point.
I do.
It's interesting.
It's a good point. Like with Call of Cthulhu, very much leveraged on cosmic horror and the concept of your character only being able to comprehend so much before they start shifting and changing as an individual. And are they learning too much and diverging into the madness sort of thing?
Right.
Of course, it's a very tightrope to walk, especially with, being more mental health conscious these days. When Call of Cthulhu was first made, people weren't as great at that. So then there's a little bit of rewriting that you got to do.
We're so going into politics. Go on.
Can we do a little jump into that? When you're forming a campaign? When you're forming a campaign,
Of course,
you said you did this. You did this.
when you're forming a campaign, do you have a list of stuff that you go over with your people to talk about,
100%. So
what you can and can't, and why, and has that helped you, and have you run into problems?
I am a very, very big advocate for safety tools because your game, ultimately, you should be having fun. We all can agree that horror is pain and sadness at its core. But when you're playing a game about horror, you are having fun. It's tough. Sometimes it's stressful, but you're having fun at the end of the day. So if people have triggers or difficulties with certain subjects that they've gone through their life, they should be allowed to say, hey, as a human being, please respect me at this table. So what we do is we have lists of like, fill out this sheet. I think we use the Monty Cook one that's fairly popular. Fill it out with all the things that you don't want to have in the game.
Real quick, pause. Could you explain who Monty Cook is? Because we know, but...
Yeah. So there is a creator who made... it's a very popular cipher system. And many other systems kind of revolving around that. It's grown quite a bit, but essentially it's creator.
Third Ed. I think it was a big deal in Third Ed. And D&D Next before 5th edition.
This was kind of like when the 4th edition was happening, everybody just kind of splintered off into their own directions, and we got a lot of great studios making cool games. But this sheet essentially comprises of like, what do you not want in the game? Do you not want things like heavy gore, stories around like pregnancy or abortion, stories around like police aggression, those kind of things? These are very real things that people deal with that they shouldn't have to deal with in a game if they're not comfortable. We do have a baseline that I always tell everyone. It's like the don't be a dick baseline. We don't have like homophobia, transphobia, racism in our games, sexism. None. We don't need it. People deal with it every day. They don't really need to like, hey, let's have fun and have someone just trigger the hell out of me with something I deal with. So honestly, I have had some players go like, well, this will be kind of difficult to play this game. It's really not. It's incredibly easy. You can have fun and not be sexist. It's so easy. But so diverging from that, we have this. It is a list of things to avoid. Then we also use the X card, if you're not familiar with it. Essentially, if something happens in the game, you didn't know it was going to bother you. You can use basically, like, we use like Zoom. So there's like the little raised hand thing you can do in Zoom, and then it'll bring your thing to attention. Because there's one example that I gave. I was playing a Call of Cthulhu game, great fun. This person was describing when my character was trying to claw their way through this like mud and dirt that they were stuck underneath. Their fingernails were snapping off and peeling back. Oh, in full description, I didn't realize how much that bothered me, but I was not having a good time. I couldn't focus on the scene. I was like too weirded out by it. And I was like, I never knew this would be a thing that would bother me. So then that's kind of like how I started realizing this is going to happen to everyone else with something that far worse, because I've desensitized myself to hell and back. There's people who have a lot harder times with certain things. So these safety tools allow us to go through, have a good game. And when you have safety tools in place, when you know the things to avoid, you can have a far better horror game, because then you know what everybody's okay with and what you can lean harder into with the game. Because there are some people who like to power trip in a game and use things that they know their players aren't comfortable with. And you can have some really bad situations. I've had friends that they got a little scarred from the table. I've been at sessions where people tried to do this. And
what does scarred from the table mean?
Let's say, I don't want to get too heavy into it. Let's say somebody had an issue with...
I'm going to get way heavy into it.
Like
but it's something I don't know much about, is the reason I want to know about it.
They had an issue with like a miscarriage, something in their past.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, yeah.
And then a GM wants to play in on that. I've seen it, like that exact example happen at a table. The GM knew they had a problem with it. They're trying to play a horror game and then tried to use that. And the person was so distraught, they didn't want to play any other tabletop games. They were done.
That's scarred from a table. Like that's... Yeah. Is that a term, or is that just something that you came up with?
Just something I'm just kind of saying.
Yeah, I like that term, to be scarred from a table.
And they haven't played any TTRPGs ever since. They just didn't want to kind of experience that anymore.
Goddamn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would love to talk more on this subject. Because obviously I disagree with you.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and
But-
and I I mean, and I'm an example of where he pushes me like to tears, but we also have a we trust you. I don't trust
Well,
him,
that's the
but I
difference.
mean,
That's the difference. That's the difference.
I trust everybody. I mean, we have, I think we had a moment where we brought up suicide, and he got my brain,
Yeah, leaned
like, a
into it,
little,
baby. Leaned into it.
yeah, messed
but-
up. And go ahead. So I mean, he's not afraid to, like, but I'm also kind of into that no ground. Like, I think we agreed on that. And
I think there's
if he
a bit of a
pisses me
difference
off,
of, like, you can
Yeah.
play with people that you know very well, but when you play with strangers, that trust isn't established.
Big
So
difference.
that's a great
difference.
point.
when we do our shows, it's almost always strangers.
Sure.
And you have to have that establishment where they can have safety in the game.
Right. So of course I want to argue it and such and really dig into it, but I'm actually more interested in what else you do. We can circle back around to my bitch fest.
Yeah.
When you guys, so you have several different campaigns. Because let me see, I actually wrote it on the little thing. Your guys' log line. I'm gonna read it unless you already know it. Like what you guys actually do. No,
I have a pretty good memory of what we do.
What is it that you guys actually do?
We tell a lot of weird, horrible in certain ways, and wonderful stories, like span across numerous systems in tabletop gaming. When we first stepped into it, I very much did the monorail pitch to, like, a group of friends, going, "Hey, I just listened to," what was that at the time? Cthulhu and Friends, God's Fall, Dungeon Rats. And I'm like, we got to do this thing. This
Sure.
thing's called a Dungeons and Dragons podcast. Can you believe it? They're recording their voices. I could do that. That's easy. And then you teach yourself audio engineering like it's supposed to be just like a fun halftime sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we started off with this, and then I am never content to just keep doing the same thing. So we did a podcast, and I was like, that was fun. I loved adding all the music, sound effects, and everything, but we could do more. So then we did a stream. We ran a stream for like 2 years. I'm like, that was great. Long campaign, long stream. I want to do shorter streams. We did the shorter streams. I wanted to improve my improv. I created a game with my spouse called The Lost Tower of Ambrosia, where I know nothing going in. I have a rules light sort of setting, and then we have people come in and we're rolling up their characters, their weapons, the monsters, like the tower itself, all in the beginning. And then we throw them in there, and I have to improv all of it on, like, live on stream. And then they're, of course, making their characters and improving those because I wanted to push myself. And then lastly, we have started up Escape in Carcosa, which I spoke about before, which even just the core concept of the game was a lot more. But then I also wanted a video component, kind of reminiscent of old 2000s JRPG, sort of visual novel-esque. And I'm improving it more and more as we go. I taught myself to draw, so I'm starting to do that now for character art and video editing. And
it sounds like you're using this as a vehicle for kind of a different thing. Man, there's a lot to unpack. Is the thing. All right, so my little note is how Lucas does it. So I'm just gonna ask you some questions.
Sure.
I feel like this is what is it? Is it Gordian's knot? Is that what it's called? You guess what I'm talking about? It's the one where Alexander the Great just fucking cut it in half. Pretty sure. And he like there's this big fucking knot no one could untie. Anyway.
Say Gordian knot, yeah.
Yeah. Is it Gordian? Is
Yeah.
it? I don't fucking know.
Google
Strangers as players. Interesting. So I've had a couple strangers as players. What compelled you, or impelled you, if you will, to have strangers as players, and what do you mean?
The first thing that compelled me is my first group was friends. And when you have friends, there is an easier concept of being able to like bounce off each other, roll with it a little bit easier. But then there is also the issue that you're friends and you can't push them too much without them just kind of being like, well, I'm not doing this anymore. And I'm like, I got to finish this game. We've been playing for 2.5 years and we're recording it.
What do you
so
mean?
Like we
you
ran
can't
into, so when I'm saying like, hey, we got to record, and they're like, I'm busy.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
you know how it is. And I'm like, well, we have to get together, and like, yeah. And so we were having those issues, and I was like, well, what if I went and put out a casting call and said, hey, who's interested in doing this? I do interviews with them, and then I get people who genuinely want to do this rather than me trying to convince people to do it. And it was like a switch was flipped, and suddenly I had this group of people who were all in. They're excited. They're there every session. They're there like rolling with it. And then it came time for Escaping Carcosa. I think we did like 30 interviews to try to figure out 8 players, and met a lot of amazing people. But then you can kind of see like who are the kind of people who work. You need like grounded people. You need some people who are high energy. Some people who are going to think out of the box.
It's a cat.
And yeah, so you're thinking of it as a show, right? Not just like we're just playing a TTRPG. We're making a show.
Are you paying?
And that was we pay based on like anything we make. So if we make money on Patreon, if we make money on Twitch, YouTube, and we split it up.
It's literally a show. Right on. Okay.
Yeah, that was always like the goal in the beginning was I want to tell a story and have it sound like how I hear it in my head. But now we're very open about like we're making shows and then see how they go.
That in just as a callback, that radically changes my view on safety tools, by the way. But we will continue. So for content,
He's stuck.
What?
I said he's stuck.
Oh, am I frozen?
No,
Are you?
I was talking. Bill is stuck.
Oh, dude, I'll remember all of this, and we will talk about it if we have time.
Can we elaborate on? So are you still? Because I see on your link tree that your casting call is still going. Are you still accepting?
I should remove that.
Yeah.
I finished up.
You closed it off.
I finished up in late December. Was the end of that series. We had a 6-part series, and after each session, my brain would just be like, it'd be like the steam coming out of my ears because of how much you got to run with.
Yeah,
but it was fun. It was an absolute blast improving everything on the go. But you have to do it in short bursts because it's one of those ones where you'll burn out fast.
Sure. I have a feeling. Go on. Sorry.
When you were casting, what drove you? Because I'm sure this is interest. What drove you to pick who you picked? If you don't mind, kind of going a little bit deeper into that. What was the draw and the character attributes maybe that they had?
So
why the fuck didn't you pick me?
So when we have like with Lost Tower of Ambrosia, I have a lot easier of like if people are interested, as long as like they have a microphone, a camera, they're willing, that kind of thing, then it's a lot easier of like a criteria of who to choose. Whereas when I was doing Escaping Carcosa, we had a lot more strict criteria. Me and Michaela came up with like kind of a list of what we're looking for. Like I was talking before, how there's basic like, personalities, like you're kind of looking for, but also you're looking for, we wanted some veteran players, people who've played TTRPGs for a long time, but also some new people it's their first time playing
Fresh
anything,
blood.
because they bring in such a different perspective. And especially, if you're making a show, they're going to bring in a very good dynamic, a very interesting feeling. In our first campaign that we had, even Evan, who played Ronnie, the lounge singer bard, never played a TTRPG in his life, and that was his first thing diving in and recording. That
was really interesting too, the way that he kind of developed as a person. I think I listened to quite a bit of those podcasts, and I definitely I appreciate that I'm glad there was a reluctancy, and I could hear that struggle in getting everybody to join in.
Yeah, it was
but it was just a wonderful story, super dark. And I want to ask more questions about that, but
of course
I'm not going to. So Escaping Carcosa, it seems like you've got some really talented voice actors. Like these people.
Yeah, that was so. There's some of the other things like for criteria. One of the biggest things too we were looking at was diversity. We need representation. There are many things with people like me all over the internet. You throw a rock and you hit 4. So we really wanted to be able
For
to
what?
For cishet white dudes. Just like so you find them all over the place. So I wanted, opportunity for other people to have a voice in like the Actual Play community. When you look on like Twitter, back when Twitter was Twitter and it was nice to be on, there was a lot more of people who were looking for this opportunity, but also looking for this as something to watch, and it made sense.
I see.
So of course, we're looking for people who are interested in doing that. We're trying to make sure that people have decent microphones, because if somebody has like, a thing for like their iPhone, they're just holding it up to their mouth. Somebody did that in one of the interviews, and I'm like, that's gonna sound terrible when you record that. So we needed a certain degree of having equipment and whatnot. But
we struggle with that on our Monday night show. We've been working on it. It's a slow build.
In our first campaign, I actually slowly upgraded everyone's microphones.
Yeah.
I was purchasing equipment for everyone. And then I also did that for Rise of Nyarlathotep, our first stream. I would pay half for the microphone, and then they pay the other half. And I'm like, it's all yours. We're just upgrading it. And then we'd also did it for their cameras too.
Oh, what kind of equipment did you get before I...
Yeah, so since we were just doing the stream, we got like I think a lot of them were like the Logitech 1080p HD
That's the one that
cameras.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it right now because I bought it for myself. Yeah, and then we got them. I think we just did Yetis for their, because a lot of them could only do like the USB, and I didn't want to buy like all the additional bits. And then the Yetis sound decent on stream, right? So then I was like, why not? So yeah, we did that, and I mean, then everybody had equipment, and I think all of them, they all went off to do other projects and different streams and stuff like that, and you got the equipment to do it, so it's awesome.
Where was the because really I know about, and I'm definitely quite impressed with the voice work that you do on Escaping Carcosa, but
thank you.
When you first started, like with Ballad of the Seven Dice, and the Shining God, where was you did a whole entire episode basically of scene and setting building. Where was the inspiration for that?
My Blizzard brain. So when I think up, like when I first did the first campaign, I wrote the whole campaign out, and then I basically had to throw it away because of everything everyone did, but it's because they told a better story than what I could ever write. And while we were doing this, I was thinking about like, well, how would the world be shifted and shaped for where they are? Like we have the Forgotten Realms. Not everybody knows about the Forgotten Realms or all these eldritch horrors and all these kind of creatures. So I was like, all right, let's describe this area. And then I started adding my own touches to it. Started adding in things like about the Shining God. Shining God was very much influenced through my dealings
Vampire the Masquerade
Christianity. So I had this whole cult on the outside. They're very friendly. They're very giving. They help people. Like all the socialisms, yeah. And then on the inside, inside it's a very dark, organization. They're twisting and shaping people into monsters. But at the end of the day, the whole point of it was to erase all the gods because they were tired of godly tyranny. And then once the Shining God was done, it would disappear.
It was about having one true God, and every
more like
all the other.
The Shining God basically eats all the other gods, and then when it's done, it's just its whole
it evaporates
to eat everything. Yeah, just disintegrates into the ether.
Yeah, because anarchy is the way.
It was just like a weapon. Basically.
I love just like hearing you describe like when you were playing those characters, just there was an ease and a look. having grown up in the Bible Belt, I really connected with that, like on a level of like, I don't know what it's like in Canada, but
it's weird.
It's
All right,
definitely
there's a
Go
lot
on.
of difficult conversations, and I know we don't want to get too political, so I'll keep it very low.
Dude, we're gonna.
Oh no, we love getting.
We're rolling around the volcano, and you guys are like, yeah, like running ahead of all of the arguments, like Mario and like Castlevania, like the ground beneath you is falling.
Yeah, so I don't talk about it much. I'm Métis, which means that
You're what?
Métis, which means that I have indigenous blood as well as European. That's like my ancestry. And there's a big issue around Christianity here in Canada with the residential schools. My family, I have family that were completely scooped up. People were killed in these schools. Your culture was ripped away. It was a horrible, horrible event. There's not words for it. My view on Christianity was very jaded. And then when I was younger, I got into a lot of trouble because I was bored. School's too easy. We're in a small town. What's your next thing? Crime. So, I was vandalizing. I was breaking the things. I was just getting in trouble. So then my mom's like, well, Jesus will fix you. Well, that didn't work. I got kicked out of Sunday school.
Yeah.
There's oh god, Jesus Christ.
Okay.
No. You fucking motherfucker. Fucking stop. All right. Hold.
All right, do it.
I wanted to say hello to the chat. There's a person called JM, I think, that jumped on.
Oh, I think that's Jess.
What's up, JM?
Hello.
Gave a bunch of smiley faces, but hasn't responded to my question. Fun. We're on Facebook and we're on YouTube. So
yeah, I'm looking at the Facebook, which
welcome. Oh, dude. Right. Okay. So we gotta pull back a little bit. We gotta retrace some of these steps and ask some questions of how to spell things. Otherwise, we're just saying things like facts, and Ken's just gonna whip it up like a fork in spaghetti. I don't know why that's in my head, but that is. Okay.
I do struggle with because I am white and I'm cis.
Oh my god.
He gives me a hard time.
Oh my god. Hold on, you son of a bitch. Hold on.
No, I get it. Go ahead, do your thing.
Yeah, shut the fuck up. Okay. God. Back to Strangers as Players, Auditions, and the Project.
Of course.
Fuck. Wow. So I want to find out how you do your thing before we get into this ball of wax. It's a good thing I'm not drinking. These strangers you're meeting, and you're vetting for your game. You're vetting for your project, for your show.
Yeah.
Do you start off with, hey, it's going to run this long?
Yep. So we talk about, there's a few things that we hit up first, but like the thing is we tell them how long the game's going to be, though we do say it's a TTRPG. Time is a lie. We aim for a certain time. Right now with the Escaping Carcosa, I think projected we're going to be going like 6 months over. The goal was a little over a year. It's looking like it's going to take a little over a year and a half. But all in all, like we have it fairly contained. We also inform the players, like, when we're getting near sort of like that mark, like, hey, this will go longer. Who is still okay to continue on? It's totally okay if you're not.
What if they X card you?
The X card?
What if they, as in, I'm just being a dick, but what if they're like, nope, I'm out?
That's totally fine. They're good to go. So we would have a sort of
into the.
Yeah. So we would ask them to just do like a sort of session or two about like wrapping up their character and like maybe if they're going off somewhere to look into something, or if they want the character to die, we could do that too. But like,
you let them bow out kind of.
Right. And we actually have it open. We do have like a contract for the game because when money is involved, always have legal.
So how do you do this?
So what we did is we had like a lawyer kind of create like a baseline contract, very simple stuff. And it goes over like we have like the legal rights for like the story itself, the recorded audio. If there's video involved, which there isn't for Escaping Carcosa, but if there was video involved, it, be that too. And we have everyone like sign it and be okay with it, as well as it talks down like the breakdown of like money for all that stuff. We do have it on the contract that we're all human. If you have to bow out, if there's any reason, you don't even need a reason. If you're just like, I'm bored and you want to leave, that's 100% okay. If possible, just like help us kind of wrap up your character. If it's not possible, because sometimes emergencies happen, sometimes life happens, it's also just
Life,
okay.
right?
Leave, because at the end of the, like, we're making
show
a
must
show.
Go on, dude. Show must go on.
We're having fun, but so
how do you kick people out? Not that you've had to do that, but how do you do it?
But we've been close with certain situations. We will mediate it as much as we can. We'll talk to people, try to sort things out, hear from everyone. But we do have hard baselines where if somebody just isn't being okay, we also have that in the contract covering, if there's like harassment, bullying, sexism, anything like that, discrimination towards someone, then we have the ability to tell someone that they're done. They have to leave. And
yeah, right.
I've been doing this long enough that it would kind of be a little anxiety driven, but it would be all right. You just tell somebody calmly that I'd like probably have a video chat with them, that classic layoff. And then we would just kind of, I'd talk to them and be like, sorry, we tried to work with you. We tried to find like a solution, but we're going to have to ask you to leave.
I've been looking at your TPS reports and,
I've been in the corporate world for a long time.
It does kind of sound corporate.
Yeah,
that's but I don't know. Kind of, also, has it happened?
It thankfully hasn't, but I have spoken to others who it has happened.
Right. I see.
And there's like a lot of creators will often chat with one another.
Sure.
But when you're making a show, because there's a difference of playing a game and making a show. Absolutely. A lot of people will take into a comparison of like, playing Critical Role, like they'll go into that. There's just friends at the table.
Right.
They're not.
But they're
making a show.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That's not playing a game. It's making a show. Whereas playing a game is just like, record your audio, toss it up there. It doesn't matter.
Right.
If you're putting all this extra hours, because like I put 10 to 20 hours into a single episode.
Sure.
I'm going to expect with this labor investment to have more professionalism in it, of course.
Lucas, we understand.
Yeah.
Ken understands.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
I think I put more time in it sometimes than our DM. Even though like that being our GM, I mean our arbiter, I'm just digging a hole for myself right now. It's a lie in some ways because I know that he's been working on this stuff for years and he's like sincerely a good arbiter. So like I wouldn't really know how much time he takes in creating the content. And I've tried to arbit myself. An arbiter is what you call the person who GMs or DMs in DreadLore. I think that's kind of a fun
the laws covering the rules. Yeah.
The rules up. But I think that it's hard to like kind of think on your feet and go and describe a scene and then suddenly they're like, well, I'm gonna go this way, and you're like, what? You can't go that way. It's just I don't know how you do it personally. So like what do you like? I feel like
I have strength in improv. It just sort of came to me naturally. I used to always play, you play the pretend. When I was a kid, I'd have all my toys set up and I'd create a city with rules and history and lore on all the characters. They all had their own backstories and then going through it and playing with that. That's what I thought was fun. Whereas I just found all my other friends were doing something very different. And I've always been interested in how something can change on a whim. Our lives can change, our health can change, the world, our country, everything can change on a whim. And so it's like you got to think on your feet. You got to think fast. Now, of course, there is stuff that happened in my life that have probably attributed more to making me think quick on my feet. You know, fun, familial, and growing up trauma, that kind of stuff, as we're uncovering, as all of us are going to therapy, or we should. And so I have just always been very quick on my feet with thinking up things, with jumping into a character, with thinking up a story, with thinking up a background. And so when a character or a person or like somebody's just like, you know what? We're not going to go to the castle. We're going to go to the town right over there. We're going to go beat the hell out of the local hedge mage because that guy owes us 20 gold. I'm able to just kind of, no problem, let's hop over there. That was actually one of the reasons that I wanted to do the Lost Tower series, was to improve that skill. And it helped a lot.
Right, the improv game.
And do you keep track of ramifications if they don't go and like stop that one entity from doing whatever it is they do? Like they've gone
a moniker of Lucas Consequences Duff during one of our stream games, and so I am very much on like, oh, you didn't do this. That's okay. It will come back, but that's fine. You know, you go over that way, or like if they don't deal with the big bad for a long time, the big bad's going to go do all their plans then. They're going to like annihilate a city or raise an army because you're like, not today. We're going to go on vacation. I'm like, well, they're not on vacation, so they're going to keep doing it. And so I'm very much for the world will keep moving without you. It's up to you if you want to move with it.
So it's pretty sandboxy.
How do you keep track of that? Like, is it like based on episode per episode? Like they've got 20 episodes or 5 episodes to get to a certain point?
To a degree, it's a little bit vibes, a little bit my notes. Yeah. I have OneNotes, Google Docs, paper notes, all that kind of stuff strewn about in a beautiful mind kind of way. But I also just kind of have a rough roadmap usually set up, like almost like storyboarding. You have like a storyboard that you've kind of thought of, that you're constantly shifting and adjusting the pieces based on what they choose to do. And then I will make decisions on like, all right, well, they've been doing this for 5 hours or 2 days or something. Then I'm going to have this bad guy go over there. These people do this. And basically every time we end a session, I'm shifting the pieces around.
The chat, Dead Toothbrush, whose picture I can now see is hilarious, says, how do you approach a not ideal dice roll and a great story beat?
That's interesting. So there's like a really amazing thing that they could do in the story, but they roll for trash and it's kind of lost. I'll typically make like a bit of a hard move. Let's say I see something that I'm like, I really like this idea what this character is going through, but they rolled terribly and they couldn't see it. It's possible that I can sort of God hand and have like an NPC bring it up later in like a different part of the story. I could simply have it slip away. More than often, I will kind of make almost like a penalty to figuring out something or having something happen. Let's say I really wanted them to go into a room. There was a particular sword there that they needed, and they see the door and they try to open up the lock. They couldn't figure it out. They couldn't crack that lock. So then I was thinking, well, that's fine. They couldn't open up the lock, and I need them to get through that door for a particular story point. What if that door is a mimic? And then I can just have the door try to eat them, and then they can kill the door to make it through. Certain things like that, I might kind of like shift and change. One of the things I always think of, though, is when you're planning a campaign, when you're planning a large story, make all your pieces modular. The point is you will never be able to foresee what your players are going to do. If you're telling a very story heavy, it's okay to railroad a bit. People give railroading flack, but honestly, it's not a bad tool when you're telling a story. But if you're giving a lot of free reign, if you modularize all your sort of story beats, then if they go to a different place, you can just move things around and it's fine.
I agree with you on that for sure. Okay. We're finally to diversity.
Like we've been talking diversity for like a minute.
No, you've been running a relay race. But I'm gonna hold you back.
I know. I know you love to debate.
Hold you back, baby. Right. So, really quick. Dead Toothbrush says, Mimic Doors, glob dang, cheers for the answer.
Got it, Daniel.
Right. So, diversity. You're making a show. I mean, if somebody wants to make a show, or it's a project that's obviously putting it out on the internet, so you want people to listen to it, / watch it if there's a video element. One, why does it matter what the diversity is? That's one. Two, how are people really going to know if it's just audio? Because while you can usually tell from a person's voice, maybe quote unquote what they are, you can't tell what they identify as. So that sounds to me like virtue signaling.
Sure.
Now, this is not saying, it's not an accusation, it's just what it sounds like. So one, why do you want the diversity? Two, why does it matter, especially considering if it's just audio? And then three, have you had any backlash, advantages, disadvantages dealing with that? Go.
Sure. So why diversity?
Yep.
Diversity should not be something that we seek for benefit. Diversity should be something that should be a standard. You want representation in story because story is what propels the human race forward. When we hear stories, we hear motivation, we hear ideas. And when we just hear a certain viewpoint's ideas, we limit everyone. And when we see diversity in there, when we see ourselves in a story, it's uplifting. It's healthy. It's good for people. So that is the importance of diversity. And that should be on the forefront of a lot of people's minds. If you're looking to you're looking to have these shows and put them out there. I've had a lot of people message me talking about diversity and how important it is. One of the things we do in the beginning, we always introduce ourselves with our pronouns. Sometimes in the beginning, we'll have like little people will kind of go into a little bit about who they are when we're jumping in. With Escape and Carcosa in particular, we didn't necessarily talk a whole lot about people's backgrounds. We just said, hey, for instance, I'm Lucas, your GM. My pronouns are he, him. And then we'll go in. Some people are they, them, she, her, so on and so forth. Can people tell? Can people see? Maybe, maybe not. And that's fine. But I think the people who can tell, it's important to them. And so you can kind of go into this. And often the players will talk about their own diverse backgrounds.
Yeah, sure.
We have Tenzin, who often speaks about, being Tibetan, or Marquise, who talks about being LGBTQ and then as well as Black, dealing with things. And so they'll talk about their backgrounds in there. But no, we don't necessarily have the video component. But the point of it is representation is important, and it's important to also give other people, a voice as well as a voice of a position of power kind of thing.
Do you mind if I addendum that really quick?
Sure.
Not to argue, just to kind of dig into it.
Yeah.
Do you think, let's say, I don't want to go hypothetical, but it's obviously something that matters for the project that you're doing. It's you and someone else, or is it just you who's running it?
Michaela does the story for the offline Call of Cthulhu version. So yeah.
So for you two, it obviously matters. Giving people that are not white, heterosexual, and cisgendered, and men a position on your project, right? Which is great and fine, and for whatever reasons. Do you think though, and for people that are listening, whether they care or not, if they do care, it's awesome, you've achieved the goal, right? If they don't care, then it doesn't matter, right? Do you think that this medium, podcasting, tabletop role-playing games, that kind of stuff, is there resistance to having diversity?
Oh God, yes. I have received horrible messages from people.
Really?
We have trans
So this
people
goes into the
who
advantages, disadvantages.
Yeah, we have trans people who are players. We have players who are Black. We have players who are LGBTQ plus, and I have received terrible messages on all sorts of things. We've received low reviews, that kind of stuff, based on just these people existing. And the fact that we have this problem, the fact that we have this resistance and vitriol hate towards people in this community speaks volumes about why we need it even more.
Interesting. Yeah, the internet can be an awesome place, and it can also be. I mean, it's a representation of humanity.
I think when I messaged you and first contacted you, it was actually relieving to me because I was pretty full on internet troll, like not the evil one. Like I would troll people based on facts, and the goal was to get them to call me names and say terrible things to me. And I don't know why I did that. It was just the height of COVID, and it seemed like the right thing to do. Like maybe I would get through by some logic or something, and it just never really worked out. But like there was a support and running across what you said when you like spoke up and said something. It was like stuff like, I think Portland, there were huge marches in Seattle. There were huge marches in Louisville here, and with Breonna Taylor. And I was really close to that.
You did this.
Did a lot of.
You did
a lot of.
And you brought us here. You brought us here, dude.
I didn't bring it here. I really, that's how we connected. Just because
we're not political.
It was not you and I. It was how Lucas and I connected, and it was really. It felt nice. It felt like, oh hey, like people, they don't have to be just shitty all the time. And it was a breath of fresh air for a medium that is. Or was when I was a kid, it was a way for me and my buddies to like get our teenager angst out.
Right. And it was a nice escapism as well as like a bit of self-discovery through it, right?
But it was I think it was held and like it was pretty much cis white. I mean, if you look at and they're certainly more diverse than they were, but if you look at Critical Role, it's pretty much cis white. I mean, they play characters that are LGBTQ, but and what do you think about that? What do you think about playing somebody who isn't necessarily?
Wait, hold, pen.
Okay,
hold it. Got to pin it.
I was
got to pin it. I know, just a pen. Dead Toothbrush says, I agree with Lucas. I think it matters in all stories. I think they're talking about diversity. And then I think that's true in most things. Sadly, people are troglodytes, but good on you and everyone who works to make things more diverse. Continue.
Oh, I was just saying that I think a couple of the characters are definitely married and cis and white, but they play gay characters. I know Hollywood has been doing that for years.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to act like
you're not doing anything.
Or to be something you're not.
Everybody's a little gay.
Listen, everyone's a little gay. Sure, apparently everyone is a little bit gay.
It's a fair statement. It's a fair statement.
I don't know. You got the Kinsey scale. Let's do that. I don't know what are you guys on the kit? Really, Lucas? Do you know what the Kinsey scale is?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
So the Kinsey scale goes from 0 to 6 or 5, I think, and it's the idea of how how heterosexual or how homosexual you are.
People lie.
So it's like this psychological thing, and
it's fair.
Yeah. So the idea is that most people are not a 0, which would be completely heterosexual, and then most people are not a 5 or whatever the top number is, which is completely homosexual.
Mm.
Just a whole everyone's a little gay thing.
I've had a lot of those kind of conversations. I mean, I will come back to your point. You were just saying, but my spouse is non-binary and pan, and so they often talk to me, who's cishet, and then they're like, "How can you just find one gender attractive?" Like, because my spouse is like, everyone's hot, everyone's beautiful, you know. Like, and I'm like, that's fair. I mean, you can tell that everyone's attractive. It's just not necessarily a
so
like
different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, but you know, it's more like a fun conversation of like, you know, that kind of thing. But as far as people playing things that they're not, I don't think there is really a problem with it as long as it's done respectfully. You have to understand what you're doing. You have to do the research of what you're doing, because there are so many harmful tropes out there that we've seen TV stumble into every other day. You know, and I think that, you know, it's fine playing something that you're not necessarily. I mean, we play all these fantasy games where we're playing all these different species that are coded for different things. But you know, when it comes to, say, Critical Role, they have a very white cast that they have. Sometimes they bring in a guest that they have for like a season or an arc or something. At the end of the day, it's a show that they're making. They really lean in that parasocial, but they, you know, they frame it as, I'm sorry, parasocial relationship of like, for instance, when you listen to somebody for a long time, let's say you're listening to somebody on the radio all the time, and you almost feel like you have a friendship with this person, but you've never met them.
Okay.
That's a parasocial relationship. So when you have these people going like, we love you, you are our fans and our family, it creates a parasocial relationship. It's very popular in K-pop.
Hey, by the way, we love you. We love you guys in the chat. We love you.
Right. So they do lean on that, and they use it kind of as a bit of a shield, I feel.
I see.
They have a brand, right? They've created a brand that it is these people. This is Critical Role. You can't have Critical Role if half of them are missing. Then it's a spin-off thing. Critical Role are these humans that they've put into this mix. And I feel like that's almost, in a way, it's a strong thing to use for like marketing, but it's also limiting in a way of like, you've kind of boxed yourself into like, this is like the people are your brand.
Well, they're the first. I mean,
I like
they're the flagship for what this.
Yeah, I mean they led the charge. Yeah,
I like every single human on there, like their guest stars and anybody. Like I connect. You know, I listen to the show.
Talented. Yeah,
they kind of annoy the shit out of me, to be honest with you.
I think they're kind of funny. They're not as funny as they think they are, just like some people I know. And but I think it's
I'm hilarious, Ken. I'm hilarious. I'm giving you gold.
Yeah, good. But I think they're interesting, engaging people. I think there was subject matter that they hit on that is people wouldn't necessarily connect with unless they talk about it.
They're just playing D&D. We should put things in context. So I want to
D&D. They're having a good time, and you know that's the point of D&D. You gather a group of friends, and I think you play.
Yeah, but we're expanding upon that. We're expanding upon that because
I get it.
Somebody made. I see Daniel's question there, but somebody made a really amazing analogy that I can't get out of my head anymore. The actual play community and like the whole Dungeons and Dragons as a show and other TTRPGs as well, we're in the Hollywood golden age. We're in the thing where everyone wants to make the big new show. Everyone wants to capture that lightning in a bottle, and some people are wrecking themselves in the process, and they're giving everything to try to make these shows to capture that same sort of magic that they keep seeing on screen. And so like the golden age had made beautiful works of art, but in the back end of the golden age there was a lot of people,
you know what follows the golden age?
Nothing great.
Yeah, what follows the golden age of empires is the fall of the empire and decadence.
Yeah. So we're kind of at this point where another person was talking about how we used to have like almost like when you're thinking of like wealth, there was like, you know, the upper tier kind of thing, then there was like the middle tier, then there was the lower tier kind of thing, and that's what a lot of people are framing it as. I
Are you
myself,
talking about lower class, middle class, and upper class? Or do you mean in terms of art?
yeah, in terms of like art, they were saying like with like the lower sort of tier of art, they're talking about people who are just like will straight up record something, zero editing, anything, and then they push it, right? And that's just like, I'm telling a story with my friends. Doesn't really matter.
Okay.
You have the middle who are like very ambitious. They're pushing themselves beyond means often enough. People basically working additional part-time jobs to make a show. And they're trying to capture that lightning. And some people have just been like, I'm just doing this for fun. I'm doing this for my creative outlet. But some people are very driven, and they create beautiful things. But I imagine it's very difficult on you as a person. Then you have the people who've kind of like made it, in quotations, the people who have more established things. And they often use things like voice actors. Dimension 20 used college humor. It's like very much like a flagship of like pushing forward. There's a few other like fairly large ones. And it was an interesting sort of thought experiment to think of things in that light. Do I agree with it? Not entirely, not really. I think it's an interesting thing to think about, but it's, yeah.
It's interesting. I'd never heard of this. This lower, middle, high tier. Like I understand what you're saying, but it's a sort of thought experiment I'd never heard of. Where did you learn about it, or is it something that you've derived yourself?
Yeah, there is a university professor. I cannot remember her name for the life of me, but she
That's interesting.
actually teaches classes based around actual plays. It's gotten to that point, right, that the world is starting to recognize this as something. But when the world recognizes it and you start moving into the area of like film, kind of, you know, like TV shows, that kind of stuff, then you're going to start getting different expectations as well as classifications. Whereas
Well,
it's just like, we're just having fun, right? We're just making these things and putting them out there.
Ken has a very long and robust background in film and these kinds of projects. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I pitched an RPG game in 2010, and it was no. It was like, the answer was like, "Are you kidding?" I had a studio
critical role.
Yeah, pre-critical role. Like we had a whole. We did, I think, 3 shows a day, and I was willing to go in and on a Saturday and like have run a 3-camera stream show in 2010.
A bunch of TPS reports.
And it was just not. They didn't see it. And I think we would have, like in that scenario. And I was working with Young Turks at that time, and I was definitely at the forefront of streaming. But you know, there's the, are you too early? You know, and that probably would have been too early. It wouldn't have been with the right people, and you know, who knows? That's neither here nor there. You're too early. But I do want to respond to the golden age. Like, I don't think we're there yet. AI is just starting to kick in, and I don't know what your thoughts on AI are, but I think that, you know, we are more connected than ever, and so more people have access to it. And I think that people will shine through, people who put effort into this, and people will gravitate to it if they see and they're compelled to the content that is created. That is what, you know, I'm driven to, and it's fun. So if you have fun doing it, like,
of course. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's kind of the I always tell people, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, then you're going to stop doing it very, very soon, because the labor is a lot. It's very intensive. You're not, if you're sitting there going, oh, time to do 20 hours of my free time into this project I hate, it's not going to happen. The person who spoke about this, the professor, was Dr. Emily Friedman.
That sounds really familiar.
Yeah, that is
very popular on like Twitter and like other social medias and stuff like that.
But you probably saw the comment on there. Also, I know Lucas does a lot of horror. Is there any other genre on the horizon for you, Lucas? Whenever you want to answer that question.
I desperately want to do a regular happy fantasy story. I just don't know how to get my brain there.
I know a really good system.
Yeah, my friend Xander sends me like 2 systems a week. Like, what about this? I'm like, yes, these systems would be great, but I have to tell this brain up here to be like, maybe that person doesn't need their face to split open and there's like a little baby face in there or something. Like, maybe we don't need this, Lucas. And I'm like, but maybe we should. Maybe the NPC is just a weird shopkeeper and he wants to sell you. He deals in teeth. I don't know. And so like, yeah, so
You've had some pretty goofy, silly games, though. I mean, even in the horror genre, like you will go,
horror,
like
so much
you go off into like some pretty zany places. I have to say,
we had this one series called just Doctor Work. It was a light very very light TTRPG series, our game I made, and basically it was if you've ever watched Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. Have either of you seen this? It is, it's a 6-episode series. It's up on YouTube, but it was like this British series where they're like, what if it was a super overdramatic procedural hospital drama on a very low budget, and it was supernatural, and it was a documentary on the viewpoint of this show that they wanted to pitch but never got pitched, and like the main person is like supposed to be like Stephen King, but they're absolute trash and at writing anything, and it's very funny, right? It's a sexy doctor solving supernatural issues and everything exploding, and just weird dialogue. And so I made a game around this where everyone's playing sexy doctors dealing with supernatural. I couldn't stop laughing the whole game. The editing it was a nightmare, and even editing it, I was laughing. I was in tears. It was probably like the first time I made like truly a comedy series. And Ocean Spring did not respond to my many comments over Twitter. Trying to get them to sponsor.
To go back just a hair, the Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. I pulled it up, and having seen it, it's the guys from like these what we do
very
in the
popular
shadows,
British comedians and whatnot. Yeah,
very popular. No, I've seen this. It was a tough watch, but it was definitely very silly show.
You have to lean into like the corniness, right?
Yeah, it's a wonderful place to live in. I think this one guy, like they've all these people have gone on to like be very successful.
Yeah, we see Matt Berry and hear Matt Berry everywhere, which is nice.
Yeah. What would you consider? Actually, I have 2 questions for you. One, is your guys' content all edited, or is it live streamed, or half and half, or what?
Yeah, so Escaping Carcosa and like our podcast stuff is all edited. As far as our live stream games, like our Lancer and Mothership and all that, Rise Nyarlathotep, those are all just live stream on the go. For Rise Nyarlathotep, I actually had Sirenscape open, and I would shift and change the music based on the scene we were in live.
Yeah. Sirenscape.
That was a trick. that was tricky.
Yeah. Would you consider your project?
It was live to tape. You
would click to go live on OBS and it streamed right to Twitter.
Yeah.
Not Twitter, Twitch. Sorry.
Twitch.
Would you consider it the lower, middle, or high kind of content?
I think we're kind of like, as far as like your streaming stuff we put out there, we worked fairly hard on like the overlay, having music there, and like a bit of the production of it. So I'd say we're like kind of like in the middle-ish bracket, probably a bit on the lower end if we had to put it anywhere.
What about the pre-recorded stuff?
Learning with like the first season or so with Ballad was, I'm just proud of the whole damn thing. But
and it was a great story.
I think that it all probably everything I do would probably fit somewhere in the middle, just because I am a stickler for editing. I will cut out a lot of parts that I don't think are needed. Like when we start talking about a local convenience store in our city of Winnipeg, nobody wants to hear that. So, I'll cut it out, or flipping through a book for 10 minutes going like, I swear the spell's in here.
Yeah.
Stuff like that has been removed.
But that is authentic. We don't cut that out on our shows, and
Mhm.
I think
There's a human
think
element to it, and it is good.
there's an authentic nature. We try to fill the time with we'll have things that we kind of say. Somebody will spark up and like take over the conversation, or at least that's the goal. Whether or not they do,
Yeah, with our stream
it's
games,
relevant.
we left everything in, right? Like all like the kind of goofing off and silliness of it. Whereas like the podcast sort of version-esque,
But-
I will be like with our first campaign, The Chosen Few, I was very, very strict on cutting in. I was like a slasher movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Just like cutting up so many parts.
I'm
With
getting a
Escape from
horror
Carcosa, yeah, I'm a lot more okay with like conversation happening in it, as long as it's conversation that either like the joke sort of pertains more to like what's going on, that sort of thing. If there's certain parts that we don't necessarily need, like someone going, "Oh God, my fire alarm's going off," I'll cut that. But like other stuff, like I'm more okay sort of leaving the goofing off. Especially, I don't know what it is. The group who does the Call of Cthulhu group are like offline. Their banter's next level, so.
Yeah, it is. It really they do a really good job back and forth. The conversation
They gel
so smooth. I can't imagine what you would cut out with what they're doing. But to go the Ballad of the Seven Dice, that first story that you did, I mean, I could tell that it's like you were editing it like a podcast. It wasn't a live stream. It was a podcast. And when you started, I could be wrong about this. Was it always live? Like, did you always converse over the internet, or was it like in person at any point?
Yeah, we had one of our players. He lived in a small town close to Winnipeg, and it was such a pain in the ass, and gas is expensive. So I'm like, we could just do this over Discord. It'd be fine. And so save gas money, and then everybody's still playing. So
the quality is improved over the years. I mean, the quality, the sound quality and stuff like that. And just the last 5 years. How long have you been doing this? Like, I'm guessing.
I think just over 5 years. Yeah. For like, as far as like the podcasting stuff goes. And I think a part of that is technology. And like another part of that is sort of learning just how to work with audio. Like in the beginning, I was kind of just trying to figure it out. I had a lot of people that talked to me about it. One of the people who helped me a lot in the very beginning was Dave Cole from Four Orbs. He's a musician and deals with a lot of he actually does a lot of like music editing, and he creates songs and stuff. One of our entire arcs, the Illithid games, in the first campaign, he did all the music for, like themed around the story itself. And so he would tell me a lot about like how to actually make your stuff sound so good. And Daniel, who's in the chat there, Dead Toothbrush, we would constantly talk about audio, EQ, that kind of stuff, like how to balance, how to make it sound better. Daniel's got like a really nice ear for finding good sound and like making it work. Meanwhile, me with my eternal severe tinnitus, I'm like, is this too loud for everyone?
It's hard to find that mix, and certainly live. I worry about that because I'm not listening to the audio. I don't think any audio is going out, but I have a visual cue on just kind of level. But sometimes even it seems like when it's like the most touching moment, that's when like the audio music can go haywire, and it'll be just incredibly high, and so you've ruined all your like audio. But
it's a delicate balance.
Yeah, it's easy to go too much. It's really easy to go too much. But you said, or I would like to ask you, like, where do you get your soundtracks from? Where's your audio?
So I do a lot of like Foley work because I found it's really fun. For instance, did you know that a human skull smashing open sounds like a watermelon smashing open? Broken bones are carrots for a quick break, celery for a slow break. Your gore and guts and everything, it's a lot of different kind of stuff you can use. We mostly eat vegetarian here, so I was using like a lot of beans and stuff you can kind of mess with, like when you're making like those bean burgers, just like the sounds very easy to use.
So you're doing Foley for your podcasts?
Yeah, and then I would also do like monster sounds and voices because I like doing voices. And then as far as like music goes, ambient sounds, I would say there's one guy, I might not be pronouncing his name right, but Michael Gelfi, a French creator who, Swiss creator, not French. They make incredible soundscapes, the best I've ever heard, and they're all very leveled, so it's easy to pop into your stuff. So I use that for a lot. And then for music,
is that royalty free, or is that
yeah, as long as you purchase the music and you can use it in whatever you would like.
Okay, so you buy the music from...
Yeah, and then there's some other places. In the beginning, the first campaign, I used to have like Kevin MacLeod, like everyone else, and there was a few other places that I was gathering royalty-free music that I didn't have to purchase. But then I started buying Dark Fantasy. They have really good music, as well as Monument Studios. Often you'd find those humble bundles would pop up. They're like, hey, $20, and you can get 800 songs. Sounds great.
And I'm trying to remember. So the Bard, there was a school, and I always wondered if this was a real thing, but you sold it as a real thing. It was like the Bardic school from the Ballads, the Seven.
Oh, where he was competing with the Bardic school there.
Yeah, where it's like they would get interns, but I think that there was also like you would refer to like the music that you got for that, and I really
Sirenscape was I think one of them. Yeah,
Sirenscape's pretty good.
Sirenscape, as well as what's the competitor with Sirenscape? BattleBards. That was it.
BattleBards.com.
So
I thought you had a.
We did not have an in with BattleBards. I actually showed them a clip, or like a little bit of a clip show of me bringing in these horrible interns from BattleBards, like a person who starts playing and his face is falling off while he's like trying to play the music, or these nobles who are coming in and cursing the patrons because they're nobility and they hate the poor. Just like stuff like that. They're all from BattleBards. They thought it was hilarious. They really liked it because you had to have something in your show saying, hey, we got this music from BattleBards. And I'm like, I don't want to just do that. I'm going to have terrible interns.
It was definitely a brilliant way to like introduce like.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if I was like, this has to be a real thing.
Yeah, BattleBards is real 100%, and I improv. All the Wingover stuff was always improv. I have a lot of people ask me if it was scripted. The only times I did scripted stuff is when we did a few audio drama based episodes. We have one like, what was it called? I'm blanking because we've had so many episodes. There was one basically where there's a character Drax here and they were going to his homeworld. And the way the party actually went about it, because they were like teleporting there, and then when they would arrive, it was like a comet sort of falling down. Well, they natural 20'd on navigating this comet right into like the king's treasury room where they needed to go. They skipped an entire revolution adventure I wrote. So I actually turned that adventure into an audio drama, and I got, I think, like 15, 16 people from the actual play community to come in and voice things. And it's beautiful, like the stuff that they all came up with. I was so blown away and appreciative of people doing that, because it was very much just like, hey, this is just for free, this is just for fun, but does anyone want to throw their voice in there? And actual play people, we love randomly guesting everywhere. One, it's great advertisement for your show, but two, it's just fun. We're hooked on being creative, so.
That's awesome. And I think it really shows that you care about the content that you create. Certainly, Escaping Carcosa, which the video production, it looks like you put some extra. I'm not sure if you don't mind revealing a trade secret or two, but course, like, do you animate the person who's talking, or is that like?
That is me. I actually, being a software developer, I got mad having to constantly do the animation. So then I found a loop I could use, and then I coded it up, and then I put it in there. So then all I have to do is like drag the loop onto, slap my mic, drag the loop and put it onto the art, and then the art will like kind of animate for the person talking. One thing we're actually working
but
on
you're
is having
creating the effects. It's not like
Yeah.
'cause
all the
you
it's a lot
know,
of work.
it seems like just really a lot of work. And I definitely appreciate it because that's we do we try in our podcast to change the backgrounds and really be immersive as possible. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate seeing that out there. I think that's what makes you and your podcast definitely a cut above just talking heads. You know, you've
Thank
got
you.
other things going on. I think with some of it, it seems like you've used, is it, I'm not familiar with it, Roll20? I could be wrong with that, where like you have a graphic or something in the background. Like if you're in a dungeon
Yeah,
crawl,
with our stream games, we would use Roll20
yeah.
because we were actually sponsored for quite a while by them, and
Oh,
they
nice.
let us get away with a lot. So we, fought God and all that stuff. It was very fun, but yeah, it was awesome. They were sending us a bunch of like stuff for giveaways and all that, but we'd use Roll20 for the battle maps. And then for now Escaping Carcosa, I've been trying to find different ways to show the battle. I've actually set it up now where it's like you remember like Final Fantasy 3 and 4, you'd have like characters on either side but a little staggered, and then they just like move to attack each other. So that's how I have kind of the battle scene set up at the moment. And I'm actually working on including text boxes now. Whenever somebody's talking, there'll be subtitles and then the picture of the character's face, or a little drawn thing of like somebody, like if it's a player speaking out of character, or me, a little thing of me. So I'm working on that. That's kind of like my next upgrade to the project.
I think Discord might have an app where like if you talk, it does, the little green thing around just the audio portion. I could be wrong about that.
It does, yeah.
But I wish you could turn it off, because I find it to be, I do skins on content, but
it is tricky. We use Zoom for the longest time, and now it's getting a little buggy, and I don't want to keep paying a lot of money for something that doesn't work.
Yeah,
I was able to. We do taxes, right, for our company, and because Canada's a stickler for like any money you have coming in, so I'm able to like write off a lot of stuff as expenses for the company, and then any money coming in is, of course.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I do production, so like all of my equipment, I've actually got paid to stream in the past. I've written off.
Nice.
So it's one of those things where if you get paid to do this stuff, and it's not with this, I do a lot of medical stuff and on the side. It's not because I role play with Bill. It's because I do work for occasionally, not so much, but is not as much as I probably should. But I work for Canadian companies. Let's talk Canada, because we do love Canada on this show.
Sure, yeah.
I get paid to do a lot of equestrian stuff from
Canada.
So that was kind of interesting. I know that, and this is a question that I have, because sometimes Bill can be disparaging towards nations, and I've always been a little bit concerned about having an international incident.
Like how? You're trying to start a war?
No, I mean, because he'll say different things, and because Bill is here, I'll let him do the talking, unless he doesn't want to.
I was giving you room.
We one of our most viral videos that we've had on our page was about Canada, and about did I almost do that right? No.
There's many. There's a boat, a boot, then a bow. There are many.
Well, can you describe the video? Anyway, like there's a two-pronged question. It's I notice you don't use other people's content other than your own. So this is one of the few clips where we use somebody else's content, and it kind of got a lot of views. But the other one, what was the content of the who was the comedian again?
Who are you talking to?
You, Bill.
Oh, me. Oh,
Yeah.
fuck.
What?
I thought you were talking to him
video.
about like them not using other people's content.
No, I just said I think it's important that we don't use other people's content on our.
What do you think about that, Lucas? Because you're a big old content creator, and I mean, you guys have put out. I want to say your YouTube says almost 900 videos, and I don't know if that I don't know if that counts the shorts or the quote unquote shorts. It's like 2 minute. They're really not shorts. They're like 2 minute like blurred.
Just like the GM talk. It's basically me just harvesting everything I put on TikTok and throw it on YouTube as well.
I see. It's more of a TikTok thing. Actually, my girlfriend, we were looking at it today, and she was like, "I bet he's got a TikTok. I bet that's on TikTok." But I was just
on TikTok.
I was just checking it out on the
using other people's content. We actually had something we did where during like sort of the, I don't want to say height of it, but like during like an important moment where everybody was kind of like, you remember when everyone was putting the black screens for their profile picture and the Black Lives Matter thing, and
the BLM,
and like there's all that stuff, right? But there was also like a big thing of hey, we should use this time to like uplift Black voices. So we for like I think like a month or so we took off, but every time, it might even be longer than that, each week we promoted a different podcast with like Black creators, and we would talk to them, get their permission. I would have a like 5-10 minute conversation of, hey, here's some stuff we have to unlearn as white people, and like go into that, and the comments and messages I got. But then we would also post their episode on it. Of course, we had them listen to like, this is what I'm going to put at the beginning of the episode if you're okay with it, and then we'll promote your episode. And like this was a thing we did. So I think that's the one stance we ever used other people's content. Other than that, it's just been a lot of like collaborations and me guess putting up a lot of stuff.
You do you get on and you do these kind of funny, quirky short moments. I wonder if Bill should get on sometime and do shorts on our page.
I will say
shorts are the worst.
With TikTok, it's cathartic in a sense that I could just go on there and talk about all this shit that's in my head, right? I could just be like, let's talk about critical hits, or like something, you're making eggs in the morning, you're like, that'd be a fun way to do like character resurrection. And then like there's no one to talk to, so I'm like, fuck it, I'll make a video. And then I put up there, and TikTok is incredibly responsive. Like people actually comment on your videos and like them, unlike every other social media. So then there's that kind of like fuels it. And then also I love talking about like anime and stuff, right? I watch a metric ton of it. So then it's nice putting that out there, and then people will chat with me about it. Because normally I don't have a lot of people who want to talk to me about anime. So then it's like a nice, it feels like a way of like communicating, because as like a bit of background, my spouse has a very, like poor health, like difficult lung condition where they can't get COVID. It would be very.
Oh, I thought they can't get COVID. I was like, God damn, that's great.
Yeah, well, no,
you mean
it would be lethal.
It would be a bad thing
I have to
get
be.
COVID.
Yeah, I have to be very secure, as well as my mother-in-law is living with me, who is dealing with also numerous health issues. So then, I've basically been on lockdown in a sense since it all began. I still take my dog out for a walk. Sometimes I'll meet people outside. I haven't gone to a restaurant, groceries, anything like that. So in a way, it's kind of like a means of communication and socializing. I still talk to people outside, most days, because like there's a dog park nearby. Let the dog go. And you can hang out. But yeah, I've looked for means to, you keep that human brain still going.
Yeah, that's a whole situation.
I identify with that. I take care of my 95-year-old grandmother, and she had COVID maybe 2 or 3 years ago, so she survived. But I had COVID about 6 months ago. Unfortunately, it wasn't.
You didn't survive.
I died. I guess
Came
that's
back.
not funny, but
It
no,
is
I
funny, y'all.
didn't die. I didn't die, but
Ugh.
I still have like remnants of it. 6 months ago, like I have this back thing and then I don't have the energy that I did before. So I mean, I think that the side effects and the continuing effects are very real.
I had one player who they were coughing so hard they broke a rib. They had to go emergency. Another one, he hasn't been able to taste anything for like 6 or 7 months. As a result, he's eating very healthy. Because he can't taste anything, so whatever. But it's I can't imagine the mental strain that would be, because food is such a. I love food. Food's amazing. I think most humans do.
I didn't lose any sense of smell or taste, or I didn't even have a runny nose. It was just like terrible. It was like being on fire.
Like I've heard a lot of people describing it as like the 2 seconds after being hit by the truck, and I'm like, okay.
It was not fun.
Jesus.
I did find the clip because we tend to hit, and I think that's American thing. I don't know, what does Canada think, or what do Canadians think? You're speaking for all of Canada when Americans poke fun at Canadians, or do you guys like just?
I don't think most Canadians don't mind. I think because there's a lot of like people who have their head up their ass a little bit about like superiority. Canada has 1,000,010 issues. Don't get me wrong. But like some people don't mind being made fun of, because a lot of Canadians like make fun of American issues or like the difficulties we face. I went to the States for Gen Con and I didn't know how much salt America puts in their food. Me and my spouse, we swelled up so much. It was painful. Couldn't get my sandals on because I wasn't used to this kind of sodium intake. I ordered a garden salad and there was salt in it. And I'm like, there's no salt in this recipe.
Butter, dude.
I ordered it because there's no salt. And they're like, oh, you don't want salt in your garden salad? I'm like, no, I ordered it because I'm dying from the sodium intake. But yeah, there's things like, I feel like both countries, we just often poke fun at each other, and there's some people who are a little much, but I honestly think, because I can imagine when other countries kind of like poke fun at America, you're like, we make fun of each other, we make fun of ourselves much worse kind of thing, and that's like with a lot of Canadians, we make fun of ourselves quite a bit. These weird.
We don't actually hear it because
north.
There is we only hear what's on the inside of America.
Let's take a break. I'm gonna go get some coffee. Let's take a 5-minute break.
I do have to run soon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But how much time do you have?
I probably have like 10-15 minutes.
Okay, well, fuck the break. I'm gonna go make some coffee.
Yeah, go make some coffee.
You guys keep on talking.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll be right back.
What about do you like Stargate or Letterkenny better?
Letterkenny, the earlier seasons of Letterkenny I enjoyed, and they're actually fairly accurate.
Are they?
Like the people outside the Sev, like sort of dancing and messing around, or the people just sitting at a farm having a beer and just talking shit, or the hockey people chirping. There's one time I was a teenager. I go to a McDonald's, right? We were drinking pretty heavy, as you do when you're a teen, and we go there, and the local. 18 legally, but everybody drinks before that. So we go to McDonald's because that's what teenagers do when they've consumed too much alcohol. They eat copious amounts of McDoubles. So we go there, and the local hockey team was there. They're wild. They're just yelling at people. They're threatening the staff. They have their hockey sticks and stuff like that, right? Just going on and on. One of the guys pulls down his pants and he's trying to like thrust towards. It's bad. So what do? we'll make fun of them first, but hockey people, they get a little angry. We used to actually always call them hockey nerds, and I don't know why that set them off like wildfire. So we go outside the McDonald's, and then Chappelle Show was very popular at the time. So, you know, like the white voice, call the cops. Hello, officer? Oh my goodness, I was just trying to eat something at the local McDonald's, and you'll never believe what happened. And then, like, we have all that going. And we actually got a few of the players arrested, and they could not compete in the game. And they lost. Like, oh, look at that. So, heritage moment in Canada. We have on our TV, sometimes they'll do like a weird 60-minute short of like a heritage moment, so then people will make that comment. Oh, it was a heritage moment.
Oh, nice. I've not heard. I mean, when I hear heritage, I honestly get a little triggered.
Canada is obsessed with pioneers. Like they're just, it's out of this world. They'll be like, you can sit there and go anywhere, and like you'll be like, oh, let's learn about the history of this town. They'll be like, of course, you know, we got a bunch of news. Did you know the pioneers in the 1700s? And they will. My mom took me to so many things as a teen, and like as an adult, I appreciate it because I have all this knowledge and the history of like how things worked. But as a teenager, I hated it so much. Going to all these, because I'm 6'3", going to all these houses that were meant for like 5'5" people, and I'm like crouched down like Gollum from Lord of the Rings crawling through. Yeah,
nice. Well, I being from the South or Southish. My family's from the South. I mean, so I've been around racism since I was very, very young, and I think that's why I really connected with what you said earlier. But yeah, hearing heritage. There is a cereal though that I'm sure they're a fine cereal. My girlfriend gets it, and it's called Heritage Flakes. And I'm like, can you get a different cereal? I really don't need this. I don't need this. I really don't. But Letterkenny, funny enough, it reminds me of Kentucky because there are small, like we have Hicks and we have goth kids. I mean, it wasn't goth kids. They were called I don't know what they were called. But they were called, but we had all those different social structures here as well.
Yeah,
and Kentucky is farm.
I think it's a very relatable show for people from small towns, and I grew up in a small town, a couple of them really. And another one that was a big Canadian show that a lot of people kind of related to in a weird way, but in a way nonetheless, was Trailer Park Boys. Like the first 9 seasons I didn't really like it when it hit Netflix, but you got all these people living in a trailer park and they're getting into all sorts of garbage. Whenever they're firing guns like into the air because they don't actually want to hit each other, stuff like that. And it's all sort of nonsense, but it very much bled into my age, like my generation of Canadians.
Well, people are people pretty much everywhere, so you're experiencing similar. Right. Well, not everywhere. Yeah. Like if you're rural, you're experiencing rural stuff.
Well, the thing is with a lot of like Canadian media is we will get a lot of American shows. Like I'd say like most of the popular shows are American. Canadian TV doesn't often scratch that itch for a lot of people, but there are a few shows that always break through. Trailer Park Boys was very popular. Letterkenny also very popular. Schitt's Creek, that was also a very popular one. 22 Minutes was our comedy show that makes fun of every politician. Sometimes they bring the politicians onto the TV show just to make fun of them. That's great. I love it.
And what about so I asked about Stargate because I thought that was Canadian. Did you ever watch Stargate?
I've never watched Stargate. I've always wanted to.
Are you a Star Trek or a Star Wars?
I want to watch Star Trek. I think Star Trek is great, and I love the socialism aspects of Star Trek. The core concept of, hey, we figured it out. Let's just go explore space now. That's remarkable. That means every person who's doing their job, they want to do that job.
Socialist space vegans.
Yeah, what a beautiful society. I'm all in. But I've never sat down and watched stuff. My spouse is very much into it.
If you ever get a Monday free, we do one shots occasionally, and in the space, it's called Into Space, and it's basically that. It's basically Nazi space vegans going around enforcing and I like the game. I'm a bleeding hearts liberal. You don't know that, but you and if you can't tell, it's pretty wild because Bill, he's more conservative in a lot of ways. So that's our dynamic. We hit against each other.
Very.
Pretty,
When I was growing up, in a small town, I thought I was liberal. I thought I was more left-minded, right? But it turns out I was fairly centralist or more conservative, if anything. But meeting my spouse, very much I was like taught a lot of stuff that I just never really experienced. Even going out to places, meeting people of different genders that I've never, really talked much with. We had like the odd like two-spirit person in our small town, but like you didn't really talk about it a whole lot outside of like the indigenous connections that it has, right? And then, so there's a lot that I learned, a lot that I grew. And I think over the pandemic, I was a little more callous, I think, like growing up. So you're taught that very hyper masculine trash of you gotta suffer for work and you need to destroy yourself inside, and that's how you know you've made it as a man. And when you stop feeling, that's when you've won. And so I had that a lot, and
well, clearly you can code switch with the best of them, so you've got that.
Yeah. And so like I did a lot of like unpacking on stuff, and like of course understanding the different issues that people go through with like different like different races. And I sort of hid for a long time that I was Métis because there was so much racism towards Indigenous people, and I experienced some of that racism even though I'm white, right? At the moment you tell people, hey, I'm Métis, immediate racism all thrown at you. And so
I listen to a lot of BBC. So like that is a subject matter that comes up quite a bit in First Nations, and they talk about figuring out ways to and I really don't know enough about it. We do have
I started diving more into like who am I and like what do I stand for and all that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of this pandemic opened up my eyes on like what I need to do to grow as a person, to be more empathetic, but also to love myself more, because I think for a long time I hated a part of myself because of the racism directed at it, right? So then I think like I've become far more left leaning over this is the main point I was bringing up. But I did start very, if anything, I'd say it was like heavy centralist when I was first there.
Well, we talk a little bit about cancel culture on this podcast. I don't know why. I mean, because I guess we've talked about some scandals that went on and how like a game didn't go right and like people were canceled, or like how like, and that not only ruined that one person, but like the whole business,
the ripple
was
effect,
shut down, and it was just like everybody involved were affected, and it kind of ended. And so there's a too far, I think, effect, but certainly, and there's a forgiveness. I think that people should be able to make amends and forgive. I've been wanting to ask this since the very beginning.
By all means.
When we were talking about you first starting to play, was there a satanic panic where you were with Dungeons and Dragons?
Oh, yeah. So we have all sorts of religions chock full in Canada, and I think in the beginning they all unilaterally agreed that D&D was evil. So when I first got into D&D, I remember telling my mom like, "Oh, I was just playing D&D over my friends in like 8th grade." And she looks at me and she's like, "Is that like the demon thing?" I'm like, "No, we're just rolling dice and looking at books." And she's like, "Well, you're not getting arrested, so actually I kind of feel better about this one. You're just at your friends, like eating chips, drinking pop, and playing imagination." I'm like, "Yep." And I'm like, Yeah, keep doing that one. Like, that sounds good. Go for it. But there was definitely a lot of people, you had the people coming up to your door to talk to you about Jesus. And I loved, because I was 3.5 at the time, so you had all those amazing book covers, the book art. I'd always show up with like the books to just be an edgy teen to make them uncomfortable while I was there.
Nice.
So we had it here. I don't think it was as extreme as in the States, because you all had like book burnings and stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember any book burnings, but
we do love to burn books.
We're still borderline book burning in this moment. So
yeah.
Well, the U.S. sucks. Everybody knows.
Yeah.
We are the worst.
No, we're not the worst.
No, we are. Everybody knows it.
It is.
I mean, there's great people in the
shitty people. We just act like we're nice. We're really not. We also hate everyone else in the world.
I feel like I've made Bill angry by steamrolling him just a little bit the last 15 or so minutes. So why don't you?
Yeah, if you have any final questions, while we're kind of wrapping everything up.
Let you do that. I do appreciate. Actually, last questions I do want Ken you to give.
Yeah, 100%.
I do appreciate, Lucas, this Dr. Emily Friedman idea. That's actually something that I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to look into it. I hope it's not what I think it is, but I think it's going to be really interesting.
There's definitely a bias towards the big ones, right? Critical Role and Dimension 20. They definitely have a bias towards theirs, but nonetheless, I think they bring a lot of interesting points that often media can be forgotten, media can be lost, right? TV shows that we've made that are such an impression on people can just fade into the ether. Nobody knows in the next generations. So actually having like people like professors look at this and say, hey, this is kind of a big point in this small little pocket of human history. Let's actually look at it and define it.
Is it trying to make a socio-political statement, like a political statement, or is it actually, trying to do science?
I think it's more of like anthropology is like the study of people, correct?
Yeah.
I think it's more along those lines of the study of people within actual plays and then the growth of actual play as a media. So there is biases towards certain shows because obviously this person.
Right.
But I think they have a fairly objective sort of look at it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So Dr. Emily Friedman, I'm really interested in that. I'm also really impressed by all the way that you have approached doing tabletop role-playing games as the several different projects and mediums, or I should say media, that you have. You. That's interesting. And the way you do it is interesting, and I can say lots of good about it. I definitely disagree on some points.
For sure, yeah.
No one wants to hear me bitching about that stuff. Double GMing, that is a dangerous move. That's a dangerous move.
A lot of work. You have to have a lot of meetups, a lot of conversation. We actually, every single time we record, we write up the show notes and we send them to each other and we discuss them. What's happening? Yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into it. Yeah.
It's interesting that you two are playing, or you're running two different game systems. I haven't heard of that. I'm not saying that means anything that I haven't heard of it, but that's pretty wild how those two, like, you can have two different systems to get the feel, and then it's all about the story. And so the story is like the story of one, and what happens in just the story is affecting the story of the next one. And it doesn't have anything to do with the systems. That's wild. It also, in my opinion, kicks people that like rules light games in the face. Why, you might say?
You're talking about how if somebody likes a rules light game, they're like, this is the only way to actually get across those gaps or bridge those narratives is by having less rules.
It's a common
I think if you think
Common
about
argument.
it enough, if you put enough effort into it, you can bridge any game. I think that genre is a limitation only imposed by yourself. You can have whatever you
Ooh.
want in a story. It's up to
Ooh.
you. You're the
Yeah,
writer.
that's interesting. That's interesting. Well, okay, come on. I mean, why do you think that? Why do you think that?
I think a lot of people, like for instance, we have our show that like we with like the offline and online. The online where they're stuck in a video game, it's very much an action horror, whereas like action takes a little more precedence since it's a fantasy game, of course, and then you have the horror elements in and out of the action. Whereas the Call of Cthulhu game is a mystery horror. A lot of people often think like, well, if you have a lot of action, you can't have a lot of mystery. Like these things don't really mesh. I find they work just fine. You can put them together. It's a matter of finding those certain key threads and linking them together. Most stories can
Those are
link
two different
together.
games, though, right?
Yeah. And you can link these stories. And then there's also people who say, well, if you're having fantasy, you shouldn't have a lot of sci-fi. Why the hell not?
Yeah, I don't
Link it
understand
all
that.
in.
don't
I
understand that.
smash the sci-fi in, high fantasy, low fantasy, whatever you want. There's portals. There's different worlds.
It's an idea, but okay, so I'm trying to frame the argument here, or exactly what you're saying. Taking two campaigns that are run in two different systems that
Yep.
are essentially a contiguous story, that makes sense because literally the story is the transit, right?
Mhm.
That's the meta element in a way.
Yep.
However, that's not the same thing as having a game and injecting a horror game, let's say, and injecting sci-fi and fantasy and all these different genres, because we're getting into a semantic argument at that point, one, and two, that project is a different thing than having two campaigns running simultaneously.
You mean like you have the two campaigns, you have the story that links them together, but you're saying having like a horror game then injecting a number of things into it, it's a different kind of statement in itself?
Yeah, what I'm saying is it possible to mix genres successfully? Yeah, why not? Is it incredibly difficult to mix a comedy game, slapstick comedy, and a horror game at the same time? I'm sure that's possible, but
I would argue just watch One Punch Man. You have two very different shows combined into one show with the same story, but through different
it's not horror.
But it is, one is a comedy that has a bit of
Yeah.
action in it because he ends the action pretty quick. That's
Sure.
his gimmick.
Yeah, that's a
But the
shtick.
other is a heavy superhero drama where people are dying. The heroes are getting wrecked. The monsters are terrifying, and there's this impending doom. And you have these two, and they're two. You could have them in like two different stories. They'd be standalone stories entirely. but
that's
you could
not
have
the
them in
same.
show.
That's not the same thing. Like, what I'm saying is, of course you can mix genres. You can mix genres, of course. But there's certain genres that, okay, again, the semantic argument. You can mix story elements
Mm-hmm.
that are stereotypical of certain genres. Of course. Some of those mixtures are going to be far more difficult to achieve. But I don't have any argument against that. I don't understand why someone really would. And I don't know what it would mean either, right? At the same time, there is a genre, which is One Punch Man. You could even call it its own genre if you wanted to, but I'm sure there's a name for it. So, and perhaps it mixes different story elements, but that's different than saying I'm running a horror game, which is psychological, let's say, and atmospheric, and maybe plays on maybe not fear, but existential fear. And then somehow injecting into that slapstick comedy. Is it possible? Sure. Is it likely? No.
I would say when it comes to horror games, right? When we have like TTRPG games, you'll watch all this stuff and you'll have people who will goof off. You'll have moments where people, like, the tension's so thick and then people just joke. They have to say
They got
something
to.
stupid.
They have
Yeah,
to.
because the tension's too much. Humans aren't meant to be there, and we can't perceive false stress
Because you're not strong
with
enough.
real stress, right? Since the brain can't perceive the difference in stresses, like when we imagine a stressful situation, it's the exact same stress in the body. So when we perceive horror,
I have
we're
no
perceiving
idea if
all the
that's true or not.
stress. Yeah, they have like a whole clinical study on like how the brain just doesn't know. And that's
What
why
I mean
when we
is I'm
stress
stepping
ourselves
back. I literally don't know if that's true or not, but we will go with the precept that it is true. Go on.
So humans, when we have a lot of stress, we need to find a quick escape. Comedy's it. Comedy's the thing that people do.
Sure.
So you just use it to break the ice. And I think it's easy to inject comedy here and there in a very serious horror.
But it's different. That's different than what I'm saying. Or maybe it's not different. Maybe that's what I'm getting to. Is like, well, kind of what are we saying? Like injecting elements, of course. Why not? You know, a dark comedy.
You can even have like a full comedic scene in a very serious horror game. You'll have like moments, and then
but it's not two genres at the same time.
You'll have a dominant genre, and then because the comedy isn't just going to happen once; it's going to happen numerous times for people relieving tension. So
okay, sure. Then I agree with you.
A subgenre that's kind of
no problem
underlying.
Have there been people
there an 80s horror that wasn't a comedy? I mean, all 80s horror movies were comedy.
Yeah, well, what I'm getting to is I don't think there's an argument here, which is actually my question. Who are I mean, I don't want necessarily names unless you're willing to give them. Who are the people that have told you that it's impossible to mix genres then?
When we were fairly active on Twitter, we would get people while they were in between explaining the rules of D&D to us and how we were breaking it and not doing it right. They would also say, you got to remove these comedy bits. This isn't what you're doing. You're telling like a dramatic story here. Why are people joking? And you're like, because when somebody's listening to an hour and a half of really like high tension horror, the human being needs a bit of a release, or else they're going to stop listening. They're just
they should pause if they want something. Like for example, in Interview with the Vampire, I don't know why that popped in my head, but it did. The movie, I should say, not the book. So it's macabre, obviously. It's horror. Are there any comedic elements in that movie? Yes. Tom Cruise's character, or Lestat, brings a couple comedic elements to it. But I wouldn't say that that's in, like, just because something's funny or there's a comedic element, I don't think it's a genre mix. I would call Interview with the Vampire a horror movie, a kind of horror movie. And yeah, it has some comedy, but at no point are they like, all right, guys, we're going to mix comedy in this, right? So my point being,
the point being, you could though, like, right?
You
like,
could, but it wouldn't be as good.
I'm saying the limitations are on the person. The limitations are on what they want to do, but there isn't.
Sure.
The limitations aren't real; they're self-imposed. Like you impose it based on what you want. Your criteria is your own.
But then we're not talking about the same thing. So, what my apologetic, because I don't know who this person is or what these Twitter people were actually saying. I'm not trying to defend them. I'm just trying to kind of understand the argument. I can understand someone saying, I want to consume this content, this story, and I want it to be serious enough to where I can take it seriously. And it's not every 10, 15 minutes cut with comedy, which my example of Interview with the Vampire is, or Interstellar, if we want to go that route. Those are serious movies that have comedic elements. But if they had been like a Marvel movie, I wouldn't like them. Now, if I'm not talking about the person making the movie, right? They can make whatever movie they want to make. That's on them. But I'm saying if I'm a person who wants to consume a horror show, and then that horror show is cutting it up just because people get tense because it's a horror show, I could see an argument being made of, hey, you guys
think
are
it all
awesome
depends
when you're
on-
serious, but
It's the biases of the consumer, right? And if the consumer wants something different, then they can try to find what it is that they're looking for, but not all products are going to match what it is that they're trying to consume.
that's a different argument. But I see what you're saying.
So,
But it's
so when
hey,
you
fuck
when I
off
often
and
have
get
people,
something else. Okay.
they would listen to our show for long periods of time, and they would, I guess, in a way, almost feel like a bit of, like I was saying, there's like a parasocial thing that people are very easily drawn into. And so when somebody listens to a show for a long time, they start feeling very comfortable with telling you certain things that you're like, I don't know you. I don't know why we're having this conversation.
And you
one
don't give a
person is
fuck.
describing like, I really love how you did this horror thing. Here's how my father died in front of me. I'm like, why are you telling me this? I'm not okay with this conversation. But then there would be other people who are like, I've been listening to the show for so long. I want you to do this, this, and this. This is what's going to be good, and this is what I expect. And I'm like, that's great that you expect that. And
let me counterpoint. Counterpoint with you. And I'm being a little rough because one, I haven't talked much, and you guys have had a lovely echo chamber for about an hour. Do you like any bands, like old school, say like 90s bands?
I like older music, sure. Like, let's say older.
Right.
Yeah.
Give me a band. I'm going a little bit out of my weight class here, but give me a band that you dig.
Oh, let me pull up Spotify.
Did you like Weezer?
They're all right. That's the
kinda
thing. There's a lot of like music that I'm like, it's not bad.
What about Green Day?
No, I wasn't into Green Day.
30
You don't
years
like Green Day?
Dookie. 30
Smashing
years of
Pumpkins?
Dookie. I mean, Green Day's kind of. I liked American Idiot.
Shut your whore mouth.
I thought
I
it
like
was
Tenacious D. That was fun.
Tenacious
That was
D,
pretty
okay.
good.
Blind Guardian.
Thing about Tenacious D is they didn't change, right?
Can I add one thing to your last to that
I
last?
do
little
have to run right away,
sidetrack?
but yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, horror is a hard subject matter to do. To be immersed in horror in any way, it is probably one of the hardest. It is beyond drama,
Right.
because you have suspense and you have to like build this whole thing. And we've talked about this before on this podcast. Like,
It can
is
fail
a
really easy.
difficult- It's easy to break that because there's a lot of pulling people in, and so like the comedy joking in, like all jokes aside, when you make a joke you break that tension, and that's all I had to say. I don't think we should keep. So one more question, and then let's let Luke.
Well, I'll
go.
finish up. I'll finish up what I was saying. There's this idea of like liking a band when they start out, let's say, and then after like 10 years they change, probably because they get bored or they move on, and there's a new fan base that likes them. This happened with Green Day quite a bit, and a slew of other bands. I mean, even Metallica, like
I feel like
who
that's
they were
the
in the very
natural
beginning.
progression of art, right?
At the same time, the fans do get mad about it.
Yeah.
Me, and I'll just say this. Yeah, I'm not a Star Wars fan anymore. And I was.
Right.
And the reason is because Star Wars is not for me anymore, because I'm who I am and I look the way I do. Star Wars is not for me.
I mean,
I don't like Star Wars anymore.
Is for children. Like, Star Wars is a children's show that they made the movie for kids, and we watched it as kids, and now it's the next generation. It's for that youth. That's why we don't really, like, a lot of people don't necessarily connect with the newer stuff, because it's a young adult science fiction.
It's an interesting take. I disagree with you. But just as an example, whatever we want to do that we can agree on,
Right.
When things change, the fan base can look at it and say, I got a problem with that. I want you to do the old thing. Now, the creator can do whatever they want and say, well, you don't own this. But actually, they are your fans. They are the reason that anyone's listening. As an artist, I understand it, because you're an artist, you're doing your thing, it's your journey, and people might be following you along the way. I think there's a conversation there.
Yeah, I think what that boils down to is what are your intentions with the art you're creating? Are you creating art for an audience, or are you
Right.
creating art for yourself, or is it like a mix? I mean, there's so many different kind of ways to think about it, but I think at the end of the day, when you're talking about fan ownership in a sense of like the media that they are consuming, it is dependent on the creator themselves and their intentions on with the art.
What would your intentions be?
I'm doing what I want to, baby, and it's feeling good.
Good.
So
Right on.
I have a lot of listeners they'll message me and they'll say, really love the first campaign. I don't know what you're doing with that other one. I like the third thing. And like they'll send me things like that. I'm like, rad, man. Yeah, check it out.
You don't care.
You should watch this next thing. It's even more different. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that about the content you make. I don't think that people should police what content you make. So I mean,
Careful,
good for
Ken.
you for just doing what you do.
I feel like
I think that's fair.
yeah, I feel like there's a very artistic conversation on policing art and that kind of stuff. And like when you make media content for consumption with the idea of wanting a fan base and wanting the fan base to stick around, then yes, there is a sort of an agreement you're making with the fans of I'm going to probably stick to this general region. But when you're making art and you're putting it out there, and if somebody wants to listen to it or enjoy it or look at it or anything like that, and they like it, by all means, follow me along for the ride. And I think that's sort of like the difference in matters. One's more of a consumerism minded approach, but still artistic in the way that like they value what they're creating and they're making these pieces of art. Whereas the other one is more of an artistic journey, and you're along for the ride. And if people feel like running after Forrest Gump when he said I'm going to start running and everyone can follow me, I mean that's up to you.
You're Forrest Gump in this analogy or this metaphor.
Man, sometimes I feel like it because the beard just keeps growing and I forget to shave.
Right on. Well, dude, we know that we got to go.
Yes, this was a blast, though. I really enjoyed talking with you too.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you very much for jumping on. Ken, you want to lead us out?
Sure. Did you want to take a break or you want to talk more? Are you good? Bill,
You talking to me?
are you good? Yeah.
After.
Lucas,
After.
thank you.
Yeah.
Sincerely, thank you. If you want to do a one shot with us, I'll reach out to you sometime, and we'd love to have you on. If you want either one of us to do a one shot or something with you, please give us a yell and keep it up because I really dig your content. It's immersive, it's interesting, it's thought provoking, and
That's for sure. For sure.
I really appreciate you doing you and
Thank
the
you.
content that you make.
I'm on
Thank
the
you
fence.
very much for.
I'll let you know that.
Listen, I'm always under the opinion that you should never agree with someone 100%. But thank you very much for having me on, and thank
Of course,
you very
man.
much
Thank you for jumping on. It's been really fun
talking about these things. It's been a blast.
I will send you on Discord a digital core book of DreadLore if you want to check it out. And,
Of course, yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, we'll rock and roll.
All right, well, thank you everyone, and thank you for those who joined us. This was a lot of fun.
Indeed.
And I shall go.
Namaste.
Yeah,
Bye now, everyone.
Good
Later,
chat.
Ken, you
Do
want
you
to take
wanna
like
take
a
a break?
5 minute and we can continue a little bit?
Yeah, I just have a feeling that you have more to say, and I'll sit here with you while you say more things.
All right. Yeah, well, I'll go get some more coffee and we can be back in 5 minutes.
All right.
We
I'm
can't
gonna
go
put a
4
pin-
hours though. This has actually been.
It's been two and it's almost been 3 hours. So we should shut it down by 10 o'clock.
When is that? 20 minutes?
That's
Yep.
in 20 minutes.
Awesome.
All right. Whoa, we're actually back on time.
Actually, on time.
That's I enjoyed that conversation. I feel like I got every.
I bet you
I got
did.
everything. I got everything that I wanted to say out, but
God,
I feel like you wanted to say a lot more than you did.
I literally had people messaging me on the phone, being like, "Be nice, be nice, be nice, be nice, be nice."
Oh, good. I mean, I was staring at you.
He's a cool guy. He's a cool guy.
He's a way cool guy. I dig his content. Like there's a cool really like they go far out. Like the some of the storylines they have are like I don't know where it comes from or how they get there, but there is. And I think there's some lore to it as well. And I didn't get into any of the lore questions I wanted to ask.
Well, it's because... Continue.
It's because the podcast would be 7 hours long if I asked all the questions that I wanted to ask. But it's not about me. I feel content that I ask all the questions I needed to ask. I'm happy to subject myself to any of your rants and raves about.
No one needs to hear my rants and raves, Ken.
I felt like you wanted more. I don't know why.
Nutella. Good.
Natalia. I mean, talk about like you asked about bands. I mean, I liked Metallica for a long time. And I didn't like Metallica way before everybody else didn't like them. Like I liked old Metallica, and then they came out with an album, and I'm like, this is not Metallica. I don't know what this is, and I stopped listening to them. So, and I couldn't tell you what album it is because it was so long ago. It was certainly the mid '90s. I liked Injustice for All. I really liked that album. I think I liked Metallica a little bit. I thought they sold out, maybe. It was a little more poppy. Or Black. Was it the Black album? That was a good album. I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't. I don't know what the album they did after that was.
Okay.
Well, you were asking about music earlier, and I
think you missed the forest for the trees there, buddy.
I was trying to be quiet. I was trying to be quiet the whole time. That's what
you weren't trying to be quiet one bit.
Trying to give you some. Well, one of us is drinking bourbon, and the other one isn't.
That was like getting punched in the face for like 30 minutes while two people who just have completely different viewpoints than you jerk each other off and really trying to not say anything.
I feel like it's an open... I want to know more about what you were getting at, because I didn't understand the commentary, like when you went into the bands and when you talked about some of the things. I do understand your disdain towards Star Wars. I thought Lucas, his rebuttal was pretty good. It's for kids.
It's a good rebuttal. It's a non-answer, but it's a good rebuttal.
Sure.
I mean, we didn't talk about it long enough. Well, don't say sure. If you don't agree, but
no, I agree. I agree with what he said. It's for kids. I haven't been engaged with Star Wars for a while.
Kids. That's bullshit. It's not for kids. That's complete and utter bullshit.
But it's,
no, it's not. It's complete bullshit.
It's the same as Marvel.
No, it's not.
Roller coaster.
It's
but
really
I don't know the lore.
Yeah, I can tell you.
And and
you're wrong.
Like you are, so, yeah.
You're wrong. This is my point. Just because I can come up with a good argument towards something, or a good sounding argument, doesn't make it true, right? He had an interesting take on it. The argument, if we're going to talk about Star Wars, the argument of the prequels, Yeah, they're definitely made more towards kids. But Star Wars, the reason there's a fan base, the only time that it really sunk into children, as in like as the audience, was in Return of the Jedi. You know, and the toys, because they knew that it was going to make money, you know. But Star Wars is like adults like Star Wars. It wasn't like Toy Story. It wasn't a kids movie. And Empire Strikes Back was not a kids movie. You could make an argument for Return of the Jedi. You know, and the reason it got so much flack was they leaned into the kids with the Ewoks. Now, if you were a kid, you loved it. If you're an adult, you're like, what the fuck are you doing? Star Wars is not about kids. It became about kids, sure. But the argument is flawed. And it's also sidestepping my point, which is the new Star Wars are not for white, heterosexual, cisgendered men. That's my point, which if it wasn't obvious, it should have been obvious on the tails of the coattails of what we were talking about.
Sure. And
that's fine. That's fine.
I don't understand why it's that specific of a thing, because I think I watched the new Star Wars with Poe and stuff like that, and I didn't get that. What I do get about the new, but what I do get about the new Star Wars, let me explain what I do get, and then you can tell me that I'm wrong. Is that Luke was fucking given the shaft. They killed Han Solo. They did all the things wrong story-wise that we were expecting, fan-wise, to like we wanted more out of. But you know,
you're negating the why. You're not wrong. You're just negating the why. And they told us why. Literally, they told us why. Now, those productions, I should say, suffered from many different problems, that many of which had nothing to do with sociopolitics. However, Kathleen Kennedy literally said the Force is female. Bryan Johnson literally destroyed J.J. Abrams' script on purpose and said, I'm going to subvert the expectations, wrote it into the script with Kylo Ren saying, the past is dead, kill it. Yeah. This is not conspiracy theory. This is known. They literally killed Han Solo, fucked up Luke Skywalker, did all these things to boost a female protagonist who is a Mary Sue. I don't say that as I hate women. It's just that character, Rey, is a Mary Sue, at least past the first one. The first one, The Force Awakens, I actually kind of liked that movie until they killed Han Solo. I kind of liked it. But past that, she just has nowhere to go. Bad storytelling. But why they do it? Because the Force is female. Kathleen Kennedy literally said it. She's like, yeah, this is not for men. This is for women. We're going to destroy all the male characters, make them look stupid and bumbling and wrong, so that the female characters look good.
Huh. Well,
I mean, that's a pretty loud statement.
A counterpoint is they Mary Poppins Leia. They Mary Poppins her. Like there was a scene where Leia gets shot off into space.
First of all, her name is Leia.
Or Leia.
You son of a bitch.
I pulled a
Leia. Oh my god.
I'm gonna
throw you into space.
I know you're definitely more invested in this. I don't know. It
was something that I was really interested in.
You're very interested in, and I understand that.
And what Lucas had to say was right. You know, those people, the people that made Star Wars, if they're making art, which they're not, but let's say they're making art, yeah, what the fuck do I have to say about it? They're going to make their movie the way they want to make their movie. At the same time, It's a bullshit argument.
Well, I mean,
it's missing the forest for the trees. It's sophistry.
As someone who's worked for both Disney and Marvel Comics, I enjoyed working for Marvel. I enjoyed it very much so. And then I worked there when Disney bought Marvel. And I didn't know Disney bought Marvel.
Fuck.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy working Disney. It was
Mm.
I was put on different projects, and I was doing
Disney's for the
different things.
kids, Ken.
Yeah, and it was for the kids. And there was a massive culture shift and being involved with it. And it wasn't male or female. No, I was exploited. If you want to talk about working for a company that exploits you, that's Disney. That's their shtick. They don't care one way or the other. And I definitely know some insiders that are like you, that Hollywood is focused on more female oriented
Which is
movie.
fine.
But it's
That's fine.
I don't
I got no
I
problem
don't
with
see it. I mean, and it's still
I have
like,
no
if you
problem
want to
with that.
talk, if you want to talk about like women still getting the shaft, I mean, that Barbie movie is like, Barbie doesn't even get up for a nomination.
So
for-
this is what happens. It's one thing leads to another.
But
leads to
Ken
another, leads to
does.
another.
Yeah,
Right,
but Ken
you're
does.
not You're not
Okay.
listening.
I know.
One thing leads to
Listening.
another, to another, to another. I'm fine with that. There's just the admission of it's a thing. I have been told many times just what you said. Hey, look, you're not. I mean, it's what Lucas said. He's like, you can throw a rock and hit one of us. The irony being, he says that he has this other heritage. You have this other heritage. So neither one of you were white.
I mean, I come from a long line of white supremacists, so you don't tell me I'm not.
You can't tell someone anything anymore.
Yeah,
point,
right.
I'm not trying to yell at Lucas. I was
I
actually
get it.
trying to figure out more about what he was talking about, because I didn't know anything about it. And then our conversation, or I should say, your all's conversation went out into space. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know what AT is. I don't know what the hell ET. I have no idea what that is. It's terminology that I've never been exposed to.
AT, I don't know what that is. I don't know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
well, we should have fucking asked. But
Yeah.
we're like, oh, okay, right, okay, let's talk about something else.
Is that relating to
I think it's interesting his perspective on, being from a different country, which it's easy to forget, because Canada is a lot like America, but it's also really different. Different history and everything, different culture in a lot of ways. I wanted to know what were the, I don't want to use the word struggle, but what were the challenges that he's faced? And when he mentioned, among the many things that he mentioned were challenges for him and his project, this thing about racism that has come back at him. I was interested in knowing that, especially on the heels of saying we choose our cast members based on the color of their skin and based on what they identify as, which, by the way, is the definition of prejudice. I won't go so far as to say it's racist. It's not, but it's absolutely prejudice to say, okay, well, you're black, so you get on here.
He made a choice for his program. That's the way he wanted his program
and
to
that's
be
fine.
represented.
That's fine.
And if you look at other,
and that's good. That's good. I can understand that the argument, but there's also the counter argument, which is, but don't you want just the best people?
Well, the people that he got, he searched for the best people for who he cast for the best people that
were
he
not
wanted. I mean, if you go back
heterosexual, white, cisgendered men.
But he wanted to have those diverse perspectives on his show,
and that's a choice.
So the answer is that is why I think that if he wanted to be inside an echo chamber, he would hire people who have his background and his basic.
I'm not making a commentary about what he doesn't or does want, especially without him here.
Yeah,
what I'm saying is I wanted to ask him more about that.
Yeah.
Because I don't quite understand. I did ask him a little bit. And that led into, I mean, honestly, it seemed like virtue signaling to me.
Yeah.
I get the idea of there need to be more representation in things. At the same time, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I have never personally. He has way more experience with this project and has received backlash and comments and all those things. That's what he said. So I'm going to trust his opinion on this. But I've never seen in all the years that I've gamed or podcasted in the last 2 or 3 years that I podcasted, I've never seen on YouTube or anywhere else people being like, hey, don't listen to them, they're black. Or hey, don't listen to them, you know, they're whatever race that isn't a white guy. I have seen people say, oh, they're a girl and therefore. I've definitely seen sexism. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying I just haven't seen it. So it was interesting for me to hear him be like, yeah, I've received a lot of shitty commentary about the cast that I've chosen. That's interesting. Yeah. It's interesting. But at the same time, I'm like, why are there not many black podcasters? Well, I think there's a few reasons. Let me preface by 2 of my favorite podcasters or YouTubers channels. They're black people. Abbott and Preach, Key and Peele. Basically, some of the people that they're awesome. They're awesome. Basically, two channels that I listen to just because I incredibly enjoy them. It has nothing to do with them being black. Now, that's just me. Whatever. What I'm trying to say is, why are there not that many people of non-white races, non-white people that are podcasting / playing tabletop role-playing games?
I don't know if that's true. I think it's just where you look.
And that's my point.
Yeah.
If you go to Africa, there's gonna be a lot of black people that podcast.
Yeah, I know a number of black podcasters just that are friends. One of the first people that they were a podcaster far earlier than I even thought of doing a podcast. We went to film school together, and they were doing a horror podcast like eons before like I even thought about doing a podcast. And it was short, it was long form, but it was still short. It was like 15-minute, like highly directed, very they put a lot of effort into this stuff, and I was kind of blown away by the subject matter. I think his point, just to go back to that, was that he wanted the content that he made to have a feel and a vibe. I think where you're having the issue with is, and they're doing away. I mean, the I think it was the Supreme Court. They struck down where colleges. This, you know, I'm not super brushed up on my political stuff, but they struck down what was it? Where colleges had minimums to race and stuff like that. Entry. What's it called? You'll have to give me a second for me to look it up. But I can't believe I'm blanking on this.
You talking about affirmative action?
Yeah, affirmative action. Thanks for.
Sorry, I didn't know if that was it or not. I don't know enough about it to understand. What I do know is, so I was one of my friends was listening to a couple of the GGPs and a couple of the after hours, and he listened to the whole thing. He said it was really good.
All 7 hours.
Actually, supposedly. And what he said was, he was like, oh yeah, and pretty much you could, he's talking about me, I could just come in with a Trump shirt, and that's pretty much what people are going to think I am.
I don't think you're that way.
And I was like, well, I'm not that way. And I was like, really? Why do you think that? And he was like, because the shit that I say is, a massive like the moment I say something that does not agree with the rhetoric of very liberal people, it is automatically assumed that I'm a far right person. And to some people, I am very far right because I'm so much in the center and they're so far that way.
I don't know. I think
I
I'm
don't like
pretty
extremism.
centrist. I mean, I call
I-
myself a bleeding hearts liberal, but I think I'm a pretty centrist kind of guy.
I don't know, man.
Just right there in the middle. But I think the country has gone so much further right over the last couple of decades. It has, since the Reagan has been around.
No, I'm saying I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying I literally don't know.
We're in a time where the far right has got the court system by the balls.
I got no problem. I have no problem with that statement. I have a problem with the far right. I have a problem with the far left.
Yeah.
I don't like extremists. I don't like. It irks me when there's stuff that people say and it's a back and a forth, or it's when we're going to talk about an issue, missing the forest for the trees, like causation, equivocation, etc. Like just these logical fallacies. Are frustrating when people won't talk about them.
Sure, I agree. I mean,
let's talk about.
I'm fully on the page of understanding people who disagree with me, and that's when, like, you push. I might bat an eye. I might push back. I might get really angry about certain things because, for one, I think there's some things that are argued that are just history and set in stone. And so when you have to have an argument about something that that happened the way it happened, and there's precedent and there's history, and I think one of my biggest issues in the current culture that we're in is that is gone. And so people have to relearn it, and we have to have these discussions. It pisses me off because, like, people haven't taken the time and energy to educate themselves on a subject matter, but I also see the point where people kind of have to learn somehow.
Well, it's also good. I will counterpoint with you because I know what you speak of because I was there. To look it up yourself and check again.
Yeah, it's also helpful too.
Yeah, look it up, sir. You might be surprised what you find.
Yeah, we can say that.
Some of this is straight up opinion, which is fine. I'm not talking about history. I'm talking about the entirety of this episode's conversation, which it can all be explained away with. Okay, well, what does an artist want to do? I mean, you can always go back to that. It's like the faith argument. Okay, well, I wanted it this way, so therefore it is. Okay, well, there's no argument here. What did you want to do? I want to do this. Oh, okay. Well, great. Good on you.
You don't have the right to tell me what to do. It's not
except unless you're not doing the liberal thing, and then you're a bad person.
That's
and
not
then
true.
You're. Oh, really?
I mean, clearly,
poor critical role for being non-diverse.
Yeah, but they are literally they've taken steps to have a number of podcasts where they have diversified their content. It's kind of a double standard. Like we're kind of calling them out for a little bit for I'm
not calling them out at all. You guys are.
Yeah, no, but
it's not
even.
It's like, go fuck
I don't
yourself.
even think we're really.
Go fuck yourself.
It's fine that
That's fine. Yes, it's fine.
They did what they have their show the way they have it. They have their audience.
They were a group of friends. They were simply a group of friends,
right?
That got fucking famous.
Yeah.
So what are they supposed to do? Like switch out people because they have different skin color?
But you said they had 300 people on their first show.
Yeah. 300 viewers.
I don't think we've had 300 people watch on any show that we've ever done. So I think we're safe.
Their goal was to play to a bunch of people.
Sure.
It wasn't to virtue signal or to raise awareness. And maybe since then they've done that.
Sure.
Which is great. Sure. Is it needed? I don't know.
Somebody probably said something on their board. And their diverse gender. Their gender is definitely very diverse.
Who cares?
It's something that was noticed.
This is what I'm trying to say. You see, this is what I mean. The argument, there's an argument when it corroborates everything, but the moment that it doesn't, we switch sides and we have a different argument. Often it's the opposite. So, for example, Critical Role has low diversity when it comes to races amongst humans. It's mostly appearing white people. Okay? So we can say, okay, well, maybe they should be more diverse. Maybe that would be a good move, right? At the same time, we can say, yeah, but they're content creators. They're artists. So how can you judge them on what their art is? Because that's the exact same argument as I'm going to create a show and make it as diverse as fucking possible. And why and how dare you criticize that because I'm an artist? Like, that makes no fucking sense. I mean, it does make sense. It's just a really bad argument. It's an easy escape. It's a cop-out. Oh, well, you can't judge me on this because of this. Like, how about you just have people that you want to have on there? Oh, there's an agenda. You want to be diverse. Cool. Fine, be diverse. Why? Oh, because these are underrepresented people in the podcast community. They're unrepresented in so much as there are fewer of them. Ergo, there are fewer podcasts by people like them. Is that a bad thing? Or is this, is the reason that there are fewer of them that are doing podcasts is because there's like a gateway or like a glass ceiling or, a discrimination. Oh, there's discrimination, and so we're trying to fight against that. Oh, okay, right on. Is there discrimination? Yeah, I've gotten those comments. There's discrimination. I'm like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that people, it just seems weird to me. Like, if it's a good game show, it's a good fucking game show.
Sure. But I mean, you make a valid point where they were a group of friends that, got together and decided to make a podcast. They had every right to do it the way they did it. I mean, I don't see a lot of diversity on our podcast, like racially. I mean, I don't fill a race card. I might be Hispanic and can check a box, but the reality is I don't act Hispanic. I don't. I mean, however that is, I don't speak fluent Spanish. I speak some Spanish, and I certainly am interested in my background and my culture, but I don't know a bunch about it because that wasn't something that my family decided to teach me. So it's easy enough to say that I am just as white as you from Kentucky and not have that eugenic conversation even interjected, and we
Agreed.
don't know the history and background of any of those guys.
Sure.
It is our choice to make a podcast the way we make it and to ask who we want.
But you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to find guest stars that fit the bill. Or, you know what we really need? We need a Hispanic presenting person with pink hair. That's underrepresented. I need a guest star like that. Like, I don't understand. I understand the argument for having that.
Sure.
Because there's this idea of like, that kind of person is underrepresented. But what the fuck does that mean? Like, you mean that there aren't many people of that persuasion? Well, right. Because there aren't as many people like that. if you want
certainly
to
they would know.
promote that, then fine. But why are you
Yeah.
promoting that? Why is it an issue?
But it's not a
that-
promotion. It's only an issue because you're talking about it, for one. I mean, I know it's a bigger issue socially
No,
as well.
He
but
he
it's
mentioned it, not me.
Yeah.
Like specifically went out
Yeah.
and found diverse. I mean, we had an entire thing about
It was-
underrepresented things, and the chat
That
was
was
blowing
his
up about
choice.
it.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
his choice.
Why?
Because he wanted to have a culturally diverse
Which is cool.
communication.
Why?
Because that's what he wanted. I mean, it's not like he made money. I don't think that it has to do with like getting more views or anything like that. It's the content that he wanted to put out there. Unless are you saying that he's done something in order to check a box?
No.
Okay.
No,
I mean,
I'm not.
I think that happens. I don't think that he's done that, but I think that happens. Certainly, affirmative action, and that's what one of the reasons affirmative action. It's like colleges had to check that box and had to get that diversity.
So here's the thing.
But there are pros and cons to the way it was, and the reason why it was repealed as well.
So here, first of all, I'm not talking about Lucas.
Sure.
That's just an example.
Sure.
Again, he answered wonderfully, and
Sure.
stated my questions. I don't see any problem there. My argument with him, as in like not against him, as in the argument that the debate I would like to have with him. Excuse me. The debate I would like to have with him would have to do with why does it appear to be a problem that there are a demographic of podcasters playing games. Like, for example, and like this seems like such an obvious question to me. And yet I have to frame it in a way, or else it sounds like I'm a Nazi. And I'm not a Nazi. And I don't like Trump. I mean, I don't know Trump. I didn't vote for Trump. I'm not of that persuasion. I'm not a MAGA person. I'm not a red pill person. How many fucking times do I have to tell this to people? It's just
no. You're genuinely trying to understand.
And I'm not going to bandwagon. And just because it sounds good, that kind of irks the shit out of me.
Sure.
It kind of irks the shit out of me when people do that, because it's not a real argument.
When people get a pass, but they haven't put in the effort or work.
I mean, if somebody wanted to be like, hey, look, the people from Kentucky are underrepresented in the podcast world and in the film world. This is true. This is 100% true. Absolutely.
Mean, if you look at what Johnny,
see, you don't want to say it. You don't want to say it because you know what it sounds like. You don't want to say it because it has to do with the whites. You don't want to say that.
There's a ton.
Far be it from anyone.
There's a ton of actors from Kentucky.
I'm not talking about acting. I'm not talking about acting. I'm talking about like filmmakers and shit. Yeah. Podcasting, filmmakers, whatever.
I mean, I think there's a lot. Because people don't stay in Kentucky. They are from Kentucky and they leave Kentucky.
No, there's not a lot. There's not a lot.
People who do it in Kentucky, there are very few.
There's not a lot of Kentuckians what a stupid argument. That's a fucking stupid argument. Pardon me for the ad hominem attacks, but that's fucking stupid. Fine, don't say Kentucky. Say Rhode Island. Jesus fucking Christ.
Rhode Island is even less. I think.
Yeah, okay. So Rhode Island, people from Rhode Island are underrepresented in podcasts.
They're definitely.
So I'm gonna only get fucking Rhode Island people. Jesus fucking Christ, man. God damn it. That shit makes me mad. Because it becomes when you just change something, it becomes a stupid argument.
Yeah.
And it is a stupid argument. Why do you need more people from Rhode Island to be represented in podcasts?
Yeah. Why does it bother you? Yeah, but what does it bother you?
Because it's on it leads to other kinds of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, racist thinking, and it
So you
pisses me
think
off.
that there's a certain kind of race that benefits more?
Racism is
because-
bigotry.
Yeah.
Racism is bigotry. Now we can go CRT on this and be like, oh, let's redefine the term racism. Fine, I'll even agree with you on it. Only white people can be racist. Fine.
That's not true.
Okay. It's still bigotry, and bigotry pisses me off.
I think it's definitely
pisses
not
me off.
only white people. No, I mean I get it. Like you feel put upon potentially, like that.
You're not allowed because of how you look. You're not allowed. We want someone that doesn't look like you. Why? Well, because there's so many people that look like you doing it. Right, but who gives a shit about that? Oh, they need to be represented. Why? Are they kept out? I haven't seen them being kept out. Oh, it's because I'm privileged. What? No one listens to my fucking podcast. Has nothing to do with my race. Has nothing to do with my race.
If you look at our we've got a pretty diverse group on our podcast. I mean, I think
we're all,
but it's we're all,
but that's not
we're
planned.
not all white. We've had two
planned.
First Nation people. I mean, we do have a lot more male than female. It's what, 4-1 on the Red.
Who
we
gives
don't
a
have
shit?
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, but we're talking about it because you want to talk about it, because I'm trying to understand
my annoyance.
I'm trying to understand what your conversation, my
annoyance is this. I mean, I've already said it. My annoyance is when there is not an issue, acting like there's an issue. I don't think there's an issue. I could be wrong. Someone could be like, hey, look, there are podcasts that, because they are not white people, the algorithm fucks with them. They don't get the likes, they don't get the views, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think that's the fucking case. Sure. Maybe it is, but I haven't seen it. If the algorithm does base shit on race, that's bullshit. That's fucking bullshit.
I mean, they talk about algorithms being racist on a regular basis.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't hear it.
That pops up.
I don't hear it. That is bullshit, in my opinion. Like, to factor in, like, if race is not supposed to be a thing, then make race not a thing. Race shouldn't be a thing. If it's not a thing, it shouldn't be a thing.
We have too much of a history in racism.
I can understand someone telling me I'm fucking wrong because of reasons, and I'd listen to it, and consider it. But rarely does that happen. Instead, it's rhetoric that's thrown at me. It's the rhetoric of, oh, well, because this book says so, or oh, well, because everybody knows. Not everybody knows. Also, if you put your stuff out as an artist, if you put your stuff out in the public eye, to say you don't want views is a fucking lie.
Sure.
Because why the fuck are you sharing it? If you don't want views, why'd you share it? Oh, I just put it there. Just share it. Of course you want fucking views. What?
I still have 0 views on my latest track, and it's fine. I don't want you to go there and watch it, because I like having 0 views, because it's fine. It's just something I noticed. It's like, I noticed that it's off the algorithm. I noticed that it's not. And if you talk to anybody on YouTube, there are videos out there that say, oh, you need to change the thumbnail, change the tagging, change, the title, give it a facelift.
Why'd you post it?
That'll make a difference.
Why'd you post it?
I posted it. A lot of times I'll post, and the reason is I've been posting this stuff for a very long time.
Yeah, but why?
Because hard drives fail, and I know that
Fair. Fair.
it is a history of something I created.
That's fair.
If that one person like watches it in the future, that's fine. But it's a limited art
Sure.
form. I think
Sure.
Google or YouTube videos. I'm not sure if this is true. This might not be true at this point. But where like I think stuff gets deleted. It might not be true on YouTube. I think your Gmail might get deleted if you don't use it in some time. But
Is my mic clipping?
no. I don't
Buck Mud
think so.
says clippity doo dah on your mic, my good man.
Let's hear it. Oh wow.
Is it clipping?
Well, everything sounds.
Like shit?
No, it sounds okay.
Let me see really.
I think it's clipping.
Oh,
off.
I've been too close to the mic. Oh, okay. I see. Yeah, my bad. It's because I was yelling.
It sounds a lot different.
Buck
on
Mud
this part.
says diverse isn't only a physical quality.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and okay, so I will give some counterpoint to myself. I used to manage a coffee shop. Oh, the years, they were so wonderful. One of the things was there was a point where everyone at the coffee shop that worked there was waspy, like hardcore, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. That was the how they were raised. That was their heritage. And we had some men and women, and that was it. And so it was my task at a certain point, because coffee shops have a turnover, to hire people. And I sat there thinking, I was like, part of the issue is that we run into is a kind of incestuous issue. Probably the wrong word, but I'm going to go with it. Everyone is from the same place. Everyone looks the same, all these things, but everyone thinks the same. We all think the same. And actually at that time, it was like there were 14 of us and about 12 were women. And so I sat there thinking, we need diversity, not because Black people are underrepresented in the coffee shop. We need it for several reasons. One, we need someone who thinks differently than us. We need someone, we just need something new. We are stale. We can't solve problems. We're causing problems because we all think the same. But how do you hire that way? Because there's literally laws saying you can't do that. You cannot base how you hire on a race. Also, the people that applied were all 20-something white women. Period. Why? Because they came into the coffee shop and that's who worked there. And so our clientele were 20-something white women. That was it. Right? And then that kind of morphed into, as the years progressed, it morphed into no one was straight except for me. And there's this entire culture. Like I would go to the grocery, to get, if you've worked the service industry, you understand this. You go get Advil, you go get Tylenol, because everybody has a headache, in the service industry, bandages and shit. I would go and get a bunch of Midol. I came back and from a grocery run once, boom, put all the groceries down. And my very good buddy, Adrian, who is trans, was like, that's one of the coolest things ever, what you just did, that you actually cared enough to like buy the things that you knew your staff needed. And I sat there thinking, God damn, I'm a good person. I sat there thinking, it's interesting that like that's a great compliment. But like, of course, if 99% of the people that you are working with are of a certain way. And you're going to go buy groceries. You're going to buy groceries tailored to who your employees are. Right? Like it wasn't a, oh, it'll look good. Oh, I need more diversity or something. Like, it's like a skin laid on top of stuff. Just have cast that you want. If you want a diverse cast because it's going to bring in lots of cool ideas, that's a great argument. Awesome. Yeah. Because people are going to attack the game in a different way. That's something Lucas said that I enjoyed. He's like, I wanted people that were new. I wanted people that were legacy to gaming. I wanted people that knew the system, people that didn't know the system. All that's interesting. I think that's a robust game, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, I got someone who's black, someone who's, Asian, someone who's whatever. Why? Well, they think different. They come from different places. They bring something to the characters. Dude, awesome. What's not awesome, in my opinion, is when it's like, well, I don't see any black people on TTRPGs. If you want to do that, but that's just because it's not in black culture as much as it's in white culture. It's not because of racism. Now, could I be wrong about that statement? Yes, I could be wrong about that statement. I could be wrong about it. I don't think I'm wrong. The rhetoric, though, is, well, I'm going to be diverse. I'm going to go for diversity. I'm going to have representation because of all this white people bigotry. And while that is correct in a lot of ways, it is not correct across the board. That's my problem with it.
Okay. Well,
now imagine you had to sit there and listen to that times 3 length with 2 people talking. They're like, yeah. Slob knob.
I think you're making that part up. I think that part is something that you have constructed because that's the way you felt like our conversation was going. But I don't believe that is the case.
Well, you know what? I'm an artist, so my opinion is like sacrosanct. And you know what? Shame on you.
Said that.
Shame on you.
What they say about opinions are like assholes, and everybody has one.
What's your point?
Everybody's got an opinion.
Yeah, what's your point?
But that's the point.
It's like saying everybody has skin.
Everybody does have skin, except
for
the people who don't.
What I'm doing is making you
left.
What I'm doing is making you explain.
I mean, the difference. I guess the difference is you had to sit through a conversation that you felt was difficult for you to listen to, and you had every right to interject in. And I think you were upset because you didn't interject as much as maybe you wanted to, and you felt worried about like somebody getting annoyed or not validating your thoughts.
I didn't want to be mean.
I think being mean is the problem. Like, if you're gonna be mean just to be mean because you disagree, that's when you lose an argument. It doesn't matter what. I mean, you lose the argument. Like if for instance, we've got a liberal who's like, fuck your whole racist world order, and that they're just being mean, and to somebody who's like legitimately trying to understand, explain themselves as a conservative or as a someone that they disagree with. I mean, if say you hit a car and you hit them, it was all your fault. You get out of the car, you start yelling at them and being mean, or you were hit. I don't know. It doesn't matter. the point is like you lose the argument when you're mean. It doesn't make any sense. Because you've taken something personally, and you don't have, like, not you, but if the person doesn't have the ability to articulate themselves in a way where it's not anger and bitterness and calling someone out, you might be right, you might be correct with whatever it is you're trying to say, but like, it's about how you do it. I mean, with debate, that's where you lose.
Bullshit.
Because the comments become irrelevant. They become
You mean
irrelevant.
the other person? You mean the person is not going to listen to you?
Yeah, you're making personal attacks, and it doesn't matter. Sure,
well, if you're right, you're okay. I use the word mean. I use the word mean loosely.
Yeah. Okay.
Which let me cut it off real quick. Yeah, I mean, if the argument here has to solely do with the definition of to be mean, then I use the word mean loosely.
Yeah.
What I was saying was, I didn't want to stir up negative emotions. Is what I was saying by
so you
disagreeing.
Yourself. Yeah, you censored yourself.
Yes.
That's what you did.
Well, it wasn't the time for a conversation. It wasn't the time for a debate. There wasn't going to be a debate.
Yeah.
And this is also my point. If you're debating with someone, it is about being right. Now, if you're trying to convince them, then no. Convincing someone has to do with presentation, sure. But just debating someone? No, it has to do just with if you're right or wrong, if you have a sound argument. And there wasn't going to be a debate, and there wasn't going to be a convincing either.
Yeah, but that's your perspective. I think that he.
I mean, of course, it's my perspective. It's also my breath and my point of view, and my opinion, and whether I'm right or wrong. You can say that. So you're right. I also have skin and an asshole, and I'm a white guy.
I often let you get away with things that I'm like, I want to interject, and I don't. I let things go where you'll say things that bother me, and that's part of being able,
because we disagree on a lot of stuff.
It's part of being able to have a friend and communicate with someone that, if we don't get over it, like every one of our conversations is going to be, well, fuck you, I'm never talking to you again. Go fucking step off.
Right.
Kick rocks.
Right.
I mean, because you're taking it personally, and I guess that's what like when I'm mean to someone, it means that I'm hurting inside, and I want to take it out on you and make you hurt too. That's what meanness means to me.
Sure.
Whereas if you have a counterpoint, you articulate.
No, like I said, this is a semantic argument. When I said mean, I was using it loosely, so I corrected it as I didn't want to stir up negative emotions in either one of you.
Yeah, but we're talking about heavy things. I mean, I think we start off with negative emotions. Like, I know this is heavy for like a Geeky Gamer podcast. We're going deep in the paint in this one, but like
this is not a very
we're middle-aged men.
It was not very enjoyable.
We're middle-aged men. We're angry at the start, for sure.
That's true. So this started off with like the first 10 minutes talking about how we were not going to go into politics, which of course the joke was, of course we will. And then diving headlong, like about every other word from Lucas was another kind of, here's a straight up contentious statement that is very easily argued with, like charged, which was awesome. But we didn't spend any time getting into it because you had a lot of questions you wanted to ask him about his content, which is great.
Yeah.
And I kept on pulling us back to this, but it got to a point where you two kind of went, and all those points that I just disagreed with or wanted to find out about, or was like, wait a minute, what do you mean? Like, I don't know what you're saying, but you guys were gone. And I was like, well, I mean, I'm out of this conversation. Like if I'm going to say something, it's either talked over, or the moment I make a statement, it's like, great, spin, and now we're on to something else. And I was like, well, I mean, the only thing I have to say is what I can go on. And that is, what the fuck are you talking about? For example, a non-contentious statement, just as an example of my confusion. On his last project, he was talking about the online and offline people, the online group, the offline group. And I was like, I don't understand what you're saying. Is it contained within the fiction? You're talking about in the story, they're online, offline, but actually in real life, they're all actually online remote gaming, right? Oh, yes. Okay. But he kept on using that nomenclature. And I was like, that's confusing.
Yeah.
What do you mean the offline game? Do you mean you're meeting up in person and you're writing and that's not televised? What the fuck does this mean? But then it just kept going from it until finally I was like fucking ET, AT, half whatever heritage, racism I feel towards myself, society. I still have no fucking clue what he's talking about because we never talked about it.
Yeah.
And that seemed very important. That was frustrating.
Yeah, I understand that. I think that I have a tendency to butt in and talk a lot. I also think that you have a tendency to butt in and talk a lot. I think
this was your episode. I knew that you had clearly paid a lot of attention to their content and had reached out and really jived on a lot of the things that he agreed with and the things that he's doing.
Yeah.
And that made sense. And there was a point where, I was annoyed and all that stuff, but I was like, it's kind of just isn't my conversation. Like, no one's laughing at my jokes. I'm me pulling back and trying to find out the definitions in this and argue is starting to frustrate what we're doing with the episode. And the chat was asking him actual game questions. And I was like, I need to shut the fuck up. And then I was getting texts saying, hey, you need to shut the fuck up. So I was like, I'm going to shut the fuck up.
Nice. Any text from anybody I know?
Yeah, my girlfriend's one.
Yeah, she was watching.
She was like, be nice, dude. And I was like, I'm being nice.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I didn't say that. I was like, okay, I'm sorry.
I mean,
I think she saw it. She was like,
sure. Yeah, no, I saw it too. I'm with you. I kind of knew that it would, like, I didn't think about it that much, but I kind of knew that this whole episode would bother you. It's all shit. I kind of knew that.
Bleeding heart liberals, man.
But I think that one of the things we have to do, I mean, as a person who I've probably watched more conservative bullshit and experienced it, like,
I don't. Fuck conservative
No,
bullshit.
I mean, when I was doing political stuff, like, you got to go deep in the paint. You got to know what the other side is about.
Sure.
And like,
they're just as vapid and stupid. Conservatives are the fucking worst.
One of the things that I always struggled with is not understanding why, like, it was, and I think that's something that I'm open to, and certainly really appreciate that we can converse the way we do. I also want this to be a safe enough space. I mean, I think it's always a bad thing to attack a guest, but I mean,
I don't want to berate.
I want it. If there was a way you can phrase it to not be, well, I think you're fucking wrong about your stupid little TV show or whatever. So like,
no, I don't want to do
why do you do it that way? Because I think it's wrong. I don't think you do that. I think But if things are bothering you and making you angry, you're gonna be more stabby with it, for sure. I think in the context and the content.
Well, I again, I don't want to speak for Lucas because he's not here, but I have a feeling from what he was saying that he's dealt with a lot of backlash.
Sure.
I think he's a far more liberal person than I am, and in a way that is, he's from a different country, so what it means to be liberal and conservative is different. The rhetoric in Canada is completely different. It seems the same, it's not the same. So I think he's dealt with this kind of stuff a lot.
It's getting closer. I used to have a very conservative friend in Canada. I worked with them at Disney, and they blocked me because I just say what I say. I don't try to be mean with anything I say. I just do what I do. But some people just they don't like it, and
I think I think that's a reason that you and I can get along. Actually, is because you say what you mean, and it's thoughtful, and it's not based in this kind of you want to look good. You actually have thought through it, believe it, aka and also may know it. And that's a real conversation. Like truly wanting to communicate ideas and truly being able or being willing to say, okay, we agree to disagree. Yeah. And then actually going back and ruminating on something and researching it and saying, maybe I'll question, what do I know? Let me take that into account. That's a real debate. That's a real argument. And that's fun. You don't want to fucking talk, or I don't want to talk to people that I just agree with all the time.
Sure.
I want to change and get better and know more. I think that's one of the reasons why what you and I do work and why we can be friends in a lot of ways, despite arguing.
Sure. Well, I know that I'm 1 second away from fucking being wrong and like saying the wrong fucking thing. Like nobody's perfect all the time. I'm 1 second away from like, and I'm sure I was wrong 5 times this episode about
you were
something. I mean, I'm sure of it. I'm not confused about that. It's fine. I mean, like to fail or to is human or whatever. I think that's a saying.
Well, the stuff that I was saying was more that I caught myself a couple times saying bullshit. Because or using the wrong words. I was cognizant that I think Lucas came into this wondering if he was gonna be attacked. Sure. I don't know. I don't know how much he had seen of GGP.
Well, that's not the show that we do. We don't attack people just to attack people. I think we knock people on their toes sometimes. Absolutely. I think we've done that. I know that I've been knocked on my toes a couple of times. Mm-hmm. Not in a malicious way, but certainly I think that's what part of role-playing game is to be knocked out of your comfort zone a little bit, but in a way that doesn't have like malicious effect. I think that maybe an argument about cancel culture that you and I probably have the same issue with is like you say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing and you're put in a box and that does nothing for anybody.
Makes them feel better and look good.
No, put in a box and thrown away.
I'm saying the people that do the throwing away.
Yeah, but they don't really.
They're on a mission.
They don't really look good, or like if you look at the people that
and they're next, and they're next. because
if
that
you look
shit eats itself.
Yeah, if you look at the people that cancel the people, I mean, it's just they're mean people. But we know, as people who aren't stars, and maybe that'll change one day because we're putting our shit on the internet.
Right.
But but we know
Gotta be a
that,
star, kid. Give me a star.
yeah, we know that there's no and it doesn't it's not helpful to the conversation. So we have to be allowed to say the things and not, I mean, everybody judges, everybody has judgments, but like
Sure.
I've always tried not to judge, jury, and execute until, like, I don't know, I really do. I judge, jury, and execute. So that's a total lie. But you know,
Judgment's fun. I think judging is a good thing. It's a human thing. We should all do it. Prejudice is fun. I think there's no problem with it. Here's the thing: this kind of statement is contentious because it usually means something. It's usually on the back of something. What I am saying, right, is not the connotation. And people don't wait and listen and consider. Of course, it's good to judge. You need to make judgments. To be judgmental is good. Period. To have prejudice, you've experienced something. You've made conclusions about it. That's good. If you know that part of town is a shitty part of town because people have gotten mugged there, it's good to be prejudiced against that side of town. It is. That's personal safety. Whatever example you want, with a person, with a whole group of people who look a certain way, all of this is good. It's good. It's the reason that humans do it. Can it go bad? Yes.
yeah.
When we stop thinking, yes.
Don't look up at the crime maps of your neighborhood in Los Angeles. Just don't look at who was shot on your street. Just don't do it, because that's not a good thing.
There's a difference between being judgmental, making judgments, and condemning.
Yeah.
There's a difference. Now, maybe I'm deciding those definitions on the fly, but there is a difference. And using the definitions, what I'm trying to say is, if I were to say, okay, one of my buddies, a long time ago, actually one of the guys in the chats is one of his buddies as well, grew up in Atlanta. Now, this particular person is redheaded, super fair, and grew up in Atlanta, where the population of white to black is very different. A lot more African American, black, whatever you want to call, ebony skinned, etc., however a person wants to be referred to as. And he got bullied a lot. Because he's a, fucking really pale, like, blue skin pale. He got bullied a lot. And when we were teenagers, this dude hated black people. Hated them. Now, there were black people that he liked. He had some black friends. But as general rule, he did not like black people. Why? Because he was brutalized in a place by people that looked like that. As he got older, though, and as he was hanging out with us, we would have to say, hey, look, dude, we get where you're coming from, but you got to stop. Like, stop being hateful. Keep it to yourself, or fucking grow up. Eventually, he came to that conclusion. It took him a really long time. And he said, you know what? Black people are fine. I just was hurt really bad. Right?
Yeah.
So what is all that?
By a group of very specific people that,
that happen to look a certain way.
There are assholes everywhere. Everybody.
Yes. I got another friend who's a black person, and he's like, I'm tired of getting brutalized. Everywhere I go that I live, and there's a bunch of fucking white people.
Yeah.
I'm scared.
Sure.
All of the things. And he's like, I am tired of not being comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah.
And is he racist? I don't know if he's racist, but I understand why he would be.
Sure.
He looks at white people like, you look at me a certain way.
I had a culture
get
shock
that.
in coming to Kentucky from living in California. I spent time in South Central. I spent time in Oakland, California. And I forgot about, because like there, I talked to people. I was a minority, and I talked to everybody, and like there wasn't a fear, and I experienced that here a little bit. I experienced people looking at me like, not everybody, but some people, they definitely, there's a look of like, and certainly it's easy to overcome that fear just with the hello or just being nice from my experience. Like, but first glances can be like, oh wait, is something gonna go, like, because I could be that Karen that like totally fucks up their day, and that is a real scenario. I mean,
absolutely. Well, I mean, how many cops does it take being dicks before you're like, I fucking hate police, regardless of what they look like?
Sure.
Or how many politicians, or how many teachers, or whatever it is. Sure. It's important, I think, that we keep our judgments, but it's also important that we don't condemn, like you said, putting people in a box. Keeping the open mind of, that's not everybody. Like, I could drive around Los Angeles and be like, I hate LA drivers. But that's not the truth. There are some really bad LA drivers, but it's not the truth.
I hate drivers in general. All of the other drivers, all the people in cars. I hate the whole system of cars. I really do. I
do wish that we had trains. I'm not even lying.
Like, cars have become an impossible, ineffective way of traveling.
They suck. I hate it. Don't want to drive.
Because it's not sustainable. There are too many people, not enough roads.
Well, going around here, with some of the people that I hang out with, straight up, they don't drive. They're like, oh, fuck driving. Let's just Uber.
Yeah, fuck.
And I'm like, that's so interesting that in this town, people are like, dude, you don't want to drive if you don't have to. Like, how much cooler it'd be. I harp on it a lot.
If you don't have to go far, yeah. If you're not going across town.
You're not going more than 10 minutes.
if you're driving your car and you lose your parking spot, like, yeah, I don't think I'd want to drive your car. Like, how much do you love having that massive car?
Oh, I'm fine with it, dude. I cruise. I just chill. Like, I was telling my girlfriend yesterday.
Is it doing well? Is the car doing well, by the way?
Yeah, dude. I avoid all highways. This is what I was saying. I avoid all highways. I put in maps, avoid highways. I try not to go distance, and I'm mosey. I took your advice, which is hang out in the right lane or the second to the right, because the right lane is actually awful. Just go your pace, do your thing, and I just give people room. Yeah, let them through.
Give them room. Give people room. Don't use your brakes. Like, I don't speed up with everybody else. I just go slow.
Nope.
And the people behind me hate it.
They go around.
Fuck them. They go around.
They're fine. Fine. That's
what I didn't use my brakes. Everybody stopped. Do you know who didn't stop? Me. I didn't stop. You guys all stop.
I just scoot on by.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Yeah, I was surprised that we went as deep into prejudice.
I didn't even try. Like, I sat there like, and then
I didn't think we went that deep. I really didn't.
Oh, man.
Like, I thought we were.
He's an interesting dude. He's an interesting
really
dude.
Interesting. Absolutely. I empathize with him because I've had the same experience when I was running my political talk shows. Like, people threatened me. They that's a real thing.
And,
Like,
and
we
whether
don't
he's
get-
trying to be political or not,
Yeah.
what he's doing has a political statement attached.
Sure.
And maybe that's the best way for me to say it.
Sure.
I don't know if he's trying to do that or not,
Political for
but
them,
there is
yeah,
something
sure.
attached to it, or very easily
That's not him.
attached to it.
He's chosen his thing. It's the other
Right.
people that have the issue. And
Right.
you know, if I break it down and this thing blows up, you know, you're gonna get hate mail and I'm gonna get death threats.
Oh, dude. Well, this is why my buddy was like, you might as well wear a Trump shirt, because me saying what I'm saying pitted against you. I look like I fucking am waving
Yeah,
the flag, man.
But I'm
And
not.
I'm not.
I don't think you're ultra right by any means.
I'm not.
And I think if given enough time, you talk it through and figure it out and say what you really mean, and it's insightful and there's a purpose behind it, and you know, one of these days I'll understand your hatred towards Star Trek, and I think it's in the lore and the story
It's not
and the
Star Trek.
direction.
It's Star Wars.
Star Wars. Yeah, Star Wars,
piece of
whatever.
Although
And
Star Trek Discovery sucks
I mean,
dick.
I think
I don't like it at all.
you dislike that Discovery as well. I mean,
First
I
season was
watch
okay.
it.
Season 1 was okay. I'll give it that. I didn't like some of their decisions. I didn't like
Sure.
as a show. Season 1 was okay. I
mean,
love Michael Brannon. That
yeah,
character, Michael Brannon's the main
Oh, yeah,
character.
wonderful. Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
In the first season, dude, I was sitting there like, why? The main thing I didn't like about it, about
We
the
talked about this before. Yeah.
I'm going to say it again. The main thing that I didn't like about it was how they showed Starfleet as almost like a dystopia. I was like, it's not really jiving with the essence of Star Trek. But that's just my opinion. First season was fine. But past that, I think they really leaned into some rhetoric, some socially political ideas that really shaped where they took that series, and I did not like it at all.
That
But
social
season one,
constructing. I mean,
Season 1 I liked.
it to me, and you know, looking at it from my perspective, is that it was browbeating. It was a browbeating show. There was no question of that. But it wasn't browbeating in a subject matter that we were unfamiliar with. It was browbeating in a subject matter that we are aware of, and that they could have.
They could have been a lot more
told
creative.
stories that were less. I mean, I don't mind watching shows like that have, you know, different kinds of relationships. I think that's amazing, but I think that they were having 20th century conversations, and they were not having 24th century conversations. Yeah. If it's like, okay, this is where you've gotten to in the 24th century.
23rd, sorry.
It's depressing is what it is. It's not, it's that people are worried about being themselves in the 23rd century, so that's never changed. But I also understand that their audience is teenagers who are dealing with this stuff.
Sure.
And not necessarily me. So
yeah, that's right.
Started watching it.
That's my point. That's my point. When I talk about Star Wars, the newer Star Wars films, I was like, oh, they're not for me. Like, straight up, they're not for me. So in the rhetoric that's being thrown at me, the browbeating is it's not for me. Yeah. So, okay, fine. At the same time, I have an opinion because it's a bait and switch. Why'd you call it Star Wars? Like,
it's because it's in the world. They like some of the stuff. They just it's a franchise. It's not a story about Luke. It's not a story
but it is.
about
it
Luke
is.
and Diane.
It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be.
Yeah. And all
it
the
sucks because Daisy
fan
Ridley was
wasn't
fine.
served. Yeah, all the
Daisy Ridley was fine.
Yeah. But
That
Adam Driver,
character-
he's not going to do it anymore. He's
Good.
out. So,
Good. He's
you
like,
know,
fuck it, I'm done. And why would he? They ruined his character.
Yeah.
Kylo Ren was awesome. Great villain that they just ruined. Rey, Palpatine, Skywalker, whatever you want to call her. Awesome protagonist until she wasn't. It's like Finn, amazing. Like I thought Finn, also the black guy, was gonna be, because in the trailer,
Yeah, he was underserved.
You see him with the lightsaber. I was like, dude, you're gonna see this like Finn, you know, this black dude. He's gonna bring something totally different. Fucking Jedi it out. It's gonna be awesome. I was down for that. I was down for Rey. It's fine. Have them both be Jedi. I don't give a shit. But do something with the characters. And that's not what they did.
Yeah.
They wasted the story.
Star Wars, there's been no acting outside of, like, I think I liked Rogue One. There's been no acting in Star Wars since Return of the Jedi. And I'm talking timeline wise. Maybe a little bit in the Clone Wars, but that's still a tough watch. Like, you really have to want to watch it.
They're rough.
So, like, acting wise, they lost me in episode 1. I was out, and I never got back in again. So
yeah,
I don't...
episode 1 is, you know, there's a cut of of the prequels, and I was actually just watching it. It's it kind
like
of
a
takes
short
things.
cut?
No, it's 2 hours. Actually, it is 2 hours. It's one movie. It's the entire prequels, and they get through episode 1 in 10 minutes. And they show Anakin Skywalker. That's in the kid. But the way they show it, they change the story. The way they cut it. It starts out with Naboo is being Naboo is being attacked. And I can't remember exactly why it is, because the scroll is different. Naboo is being attacked, and these Jedi are attempting to protect it from being taken over or something, which is not what happens in the movie. In the movie, they're there to protect. But they're there because they're sent by the Senate to deal with this trade federation thing, and then eventually they go back to protect Amidala. This cut does none of that. It's like Naboo is being attacked. And the Jedi are there to say that a Sith has shown up to stop them. And so you see the Darth Maul fight first. You see all the big battle in the sky. That and the Darth Maul fight. Boom, that ends. Qui-Gon Jinn is being burned. Movie 2. It's 10 minutes. And it's pretty good.
Well, I mean, that's they stretch those movies out, but it's just they were just boring. They're just long.
They're not good.
Boring. They're not good. Yeah, no, you're right.
All right, closing thoughts, because we're past time.
I enjoyed the later Star Wars films because they're like a roller coaster ride, and I don't really care about the lore. Except for, like, I think it's bullshit about how they threw away the story. So I watched them, but I don't really care.
Right. Yeah, I don't care either. They've lost me.
They lost me a long time ago, and they didn't suck me back in. No. I thought it was like Wonder Woman, how that first movie was really good, and they had some ideas in there, and it was kind of fun. And then they made a sequel that could go eat itself because it was a piece of shit, and it got DC'd, and like any power was taken away from it. And why I watched the sequel, I don't know, because I knew I was going to be let down. Why anybody watches any DC, I don't know. They just, I guess, have a lot of time on their hands, and they want to watch a roller coaster ride that is less. I mean, the production is okay. Not great. Bad stories.
Right. Last thoughts. before we go
Everybody
off
should
this.
do better.
All
I don't
right.
know.
So thank everyone for watching. Thank you to everyone that's watching. We went fucking. It's a very different episode. Very different episode. Thank you to Lucas the Duff from Ballad of the Seven Dice. Interesting dude. Interesting. It's him and his partner, I think.
Yeah. And I think they've got a kind of reoccurring group of people. We didn't.
They got a reoccurring group. They do a whole lot of different things. They got a whole mission. Real interesting. And they approach it from an artistic way that is, I'm going to use the word one last time, contentious, which is provocative. It's provocative. And whether it's meant to be or not to be. But that's at least interesting. At the very least, whether you agree with it or not. So yeah, I'm excited to check it out a little bit, give it a little bit more thought. And anyway, thanks to Lucas for joining us. Although he only went 2 hours. Yeah.
Well,
Sticking out that 4-hour stint.
Some people have a life. He's got a real job and like
come on.
a podcast that he does.
Yeah, he's got a lot going on.
Not everybody podcasts. How many hours do you podcast this week?
A lot. Many. Actually, less than normal. I didn't do the chess stream the last 2 days. I'll be doing it tonight though.
I think you should learn a thing from Lucas and get on your little phone and do those.
Yeah, I need to do all the stuff.
Do some little thoughts like, oh, this is what I think about this moment.
Whether I agree with his politics or not, his discipline and his work ethic, very good.
They've got
very
their
good
thing together.
Yeah. Right. Thanks to the Patreon peoples, Tim Roberts, Nostalgic, Daniel Holker. If you want to jump on the Patreon and help us improve what we're doing, that would help us improve what we're doing. It's patreon.com/DreadLore, LORE. Wanted to say a big old thanks to Couch Fire Media. If you have dug the skins that we've been using, the edits, all the switching and such, that's all Couchfire Media Productions. You can find them out at www.couchfiremedia.com. They are for hire, baby. You should check that out. Music by all lowercase letters. You can find them literally everywhere. Use them in your TikTok. Also, Mr. Interrupt. You can find literally everywhere. Thanks a whole bunch. Thanks to Trois Productions, whoever they are. And this is the Geeky Gamer Podcast. We do this every Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard, although we might start doing it a little bit earlier in the day. We'll let you know. We go anywhere from 2 to 1,000 hours and generally go hard in the paint of all these topics. Let your friends know. Come get offended. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. If we can't piss each other off a little bit, then what can we do?
That's right. All right.
Are we done? We're
That's
done.
all I got, man.
Bye.